you're going to have to go probably 30 feet at least, maybe more than that, screen camera projector. This one we have a 25-foot cat 5 cable. I also bought a 50-foot one, but I only bought one of these adapters.
Okay.
So I was trying to find out is, so we were trying to find out Friday was what do we need to make this work? And so Sunday when we came in here to work, nobody done anything. The thing was just hanging.
Yeah.
So we went out and bought stuff yesterday. Now you got people buying shit that know very little.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can and because it's very awkward. So
Yeah.
it works. That's all I care about. But on Wednesday, one's on the left doesn't work. Okay. So and there's supposed to be 4 of them and they're getting set up for that. Now, how about these computers? They pick them up at night. How do we secure them on this computer?
We can either have a tech like pick it up and hold on to it, or I mean,
Well, that's what we're trying to find out. Okay. No, what do you guys want? I mean, your computer.
well, yeah, but this is your event and your setup, so we want to make things as easy as possible on you. So holding on to it, so it's at your disposal, so like you can get it whenever you need it.
Well,
Or that everybody else can use.
Pick it up at night. I'm plugging it, lock it up.
Okay,
I just don't want to
Yeah.
That's all I'm concerned, especially when I'm getting 4 of them out there in the lab.
Yep, I've had that problem.
Is there any kind of a lockable cable we can put on these damn things? Do you think we can lock them down?
We might have some from like, a couple of years ago, but just to be safe, I don't be doing stuff. I'm gonna say no, and if we find them, it'll be a nice surprise.
Okay, if we don't have it, okay, is there a part number or something that
We can, if
we buy the damn things?
we really need them, we can buy them on like Amazon and have them here like by Tuesday or something.
Yeah, Wednesday, I think one class will be out there in the lab. I would prefer that the computers be locked somehow.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of money laying there. And I've got 36 people in here, plus on Wednesday and Thursday, I'll have another 5 more out there, so it'll be 41 plus I got 2.
Yeah.
All over the place. Not that anybody here is going to bother anything, but I don't want to have the opportunity that somebody, I can snap it out of here and then everybody's accused. Give them full, that's not going to work.
Yeah, no, we'll get it taken care of.
Okay.
All right.
So he can, okay, so now they can stream it from their computer. How do they get into it from those computers back there, their computers back there?
Save this home here.
So
It's
whatever.
kind of a long URL. That's what it goes to.
Well, write it on the board so they've got it, or give them, write it on here.
Customize the URL, or is it a generic one?
It's a generic one.
If you put it on the board over there, why?
Well, it's an encrypted one, so that people you don't want to watch it.
Right.
So because it's encrypted, it's going to be long and nonsensical and mean nothing. And so probably the easiest way is to, if you're in his account, just email it to them, and then just spread it around like that.
Okay, as long as they have it, so they can sit back there and monitor. See, the object of doing all of this is, on Wednesday and Thursday, when the labs are going, we have 4 cameras out there. They can monitor each one of those stations from here.
Okay.
Or any other location that they would dial in from.
Okay.
As long as they have your encrypted.
Yeah, it's YouTube stuff, not us.
Yeah. So if you have a group of recipients, you can email them the link right here. You just have to write the 2 line, whoever needs it.
Yeah, so you just email it to these guys right here.
Okay, now that is something that's going to change.
This won't change as long as the video is still going.
Yeah.
As long as the video is still full.
So like all day today.
Yeah. So I'll have it on my.
Once it's recorded.
Then you'll have a different link. That's the YouTube thing. That's
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
Okay, so this only works while we're recording.
Yeah, but this one, if people want to watch it right now.
Okay, so they cannot see anything other than, until this is over with, they can't.
No, they'll be able to see it live with this link.
Okay.
And then when it's done, it'll have another link, a
Yeah.
saved one.
And that link will always be the same.
Yeah.
And we don't know what that link's gonna be.
Not
Not
yet.
yet.
When will we know that?
The second you end the stream, the video, live video.
Second we in this one, then we'll have, a new address.
Yes.
Okay, so somebody at 5 o'clock today can come over here and give us that new address.
Yes.
So they can take it with them if they wanted to, if they had nothing else to do. But instead of drink beer, they could look at what. Hey, I'm just trying to cover the base on them.
I'm thinking you're getting the bases covered here.
I'm trying to make sure everybody's got everything we need. So, that's not a problem. So.
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna send this to Gloria. This is only good for today, when it is gone after today.
This one link that you're trying to send out.
Yeah.
This would be for them, they want to watch live,
Okay.
it will be this link.
For today. On Wednesday, when you start up your other live ones, you're gonna send out a different link to them.
Okay.
So that's just unfortunately the nature of the beast. It's not easy on anyone.
Okay, can I print this now? Can I print that link to them? I haven't sent somebody.
You can send it, you can print it out, you can write it out. But yeah, remember that it's be case sensitive.
Yeah, that's about the bottom slide. Okay. All right,
So that's whatever's the easiest way for you. We're not gonna tell you how to do it.
well, I'm not asking you to tell me how to do it, I'm trying to make it work, that's all I care about.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just need to print that, so if can I go in here and say print? Let it go, let me go pick it up.
Yeah. He should do it, well, not in here, but he printed his office from here.
Oh, boy, this ought to be good. Let's see that, it's going, see where it goes.
Jim, can we get the doors unlocked on the building, please?
We're at,
Well, our folks will know that the only 2 rooms that are here, so we talked about getting the doors open at least for this morning. and then-
I'll get it done, I'll go to the door, they have nothing to do.
Okay.
I'll go get those things, right? Since he gets it done, I'll get it going on. In fact, while he's doing that, he's just printing it out, and then we'll have the address. You look at it, and we'll try it.
Jim, what's your room number?
Myers?
Yeah. Because the
Printer
printer
is in, no, it's not in Myers,
Oh.
it's in, what, 1301, I think it is.
1301.
Yeah. It's something.
1303.
1303.
Check
Is that
that.
of course, score 3 on the printer or something like that?
Has a 1303_2, but I'll go.
Okay.
Are you sure?
Yes. That's it. What's the printer's name?
SO1330.
Okay, I think it's 1302, unless that's the second.
if not, we'll find it.
Let me go look real quick, not before you guys get in.
sign out front telling you this was the room? Is there, no?
No, I think it's that, all it said was 7 on it, I believe.
Oh, I got you, okay.
Does it say?
It's just a little sign, yeah, I'm gonna write a little bigger.
I just seen the ladder and then
Right.
everybody got standing around.
You have a computer with you?
Oh, I wasn't told I needed a laptop.
Yeah, they don't give out books anymore. That was in the reporting instructions.
Oh, it says we're given an iPad.
Not for this class.
Nutsos, huh?
Thank you, fellas. Yep. How about you guys? Did y'all download the course manual? Y'all see that? Yes, sir.
I got told Wednesday I was coming to class.
Nice.
Well, welcome here.
Yeah.
Well, welcome.
Apparently somebody backed out.
I was third person down and the two engineers above me and all couldn't go.
Well, hopefully it won't be too painful for you.
They were all scrambling Monday because the guy backed out or something. I was like, don't you know something about electrical? I was like, yeah, I'm an electrician. They're like, HVAC, same thing, you're going to this class.
Woo!
So I was like, okay.
I get a little
And they came to me and said, to their administrative assistant, she has to send all the paperwork back up to USIS headquarters, right? So the first person comes, oh, no, yeah, I've got so much going, I just can't do it. Then she calls headquarters back, drops the next person's name in, does all the paperwork. They came back 2 days later, oh, no, I can't do it. She calls back, she's like, so take me to this class. I'm like, oh, ma'am, I have. She's like, go too fast.
Everybody wanted to be able to view what that thing's recording right now. Great. And then after the day, I'll have your password you can dial into it from remote location.
Very cool.
All right, thank you. So this is that one.
Yeah, this is the one that.
This is the one over there.
You should be able to see what's going on right now.
Yes.
Make sure it works.
That would be a commercial purpose as well.
Somebody here.
Yeah, the next house now, their telephone number comes to the hotel.
However, if you have an emergency, you know, however you want us to get hold of us.
Yeah.
And, that, however you put your name on here is how it will go on your certificate, so, however you want that to be displayed.
I'm going to write invincible.
Morning.
Hey, Joey. You get tagged to give this class, or?
Tag slash volunteer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm Jerry.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they were, Dave Schwank was retiring, and I had a friend that happened to be here when he announced that, and so that kind of.
Kind of like, who would you recommend?
Yeah.
Well, that's.
I've enjoyed it. It's been good, honestly. It's made me dive into this stuff more, and so it's made me better, you know, for sure.
Awesome. I've been just on my list to come to. Yeah, but I've been doing all your sure. Because not always do you get your mechanical reps available.
Exactly.
And then otherwise, that fine line, you're holding up the contractor, if you don't get some visibility, someone monitoring.
That's right. Well, that's really, we've had a lot of discussion amongst instructors. We got 4 guys, and, you know, we'll obviously go forward with who all comes here, and you'll see the types of people we get here go from QAs to electricians.
I am a QA now.
To admin assistants, to resident engineers, and so trying to have a course that touches everybody enough where they're happy is difficult, you know?
So everybody gets some fulfillment of what they were looking at. Well, I'm excited.
So yeah, we had a lot of discussion about that, is, you know, what material do we need, and trying to organize it correctly.
How many classes a year do you usually?
Normally 2. Yeah, so there's 2 done here, there's the testing and balancing one done here, and then also the commissioning one's done here as well. And that one is completely different. As of this year, they completely rewrote the contract, they got new equipment, new scenarios. So if you've done that one in the past, I don't even know what it is. I might start teaching the commissioning one, but as I understand it, we can do better.
So if it's been a long time, you'd recommend them come back?
Definitely. Yeah, I want to come back
Like
myself.
my buddy said he did the commissioning one. I mean, actually, my coworker actually did this test. He said back then, I think they did it at a separate location, and he had a field trip over here to the college to do the hands-on stuff.
Gotcha.
So this
Well,
way,
I kind of like classes for when you can catch the contract off guard. He's not expecting you to know what he's doing.
yeah, exactly. They don't expect the QAs to know. They just want us to make sure we get the right product.
Right.
Yeah, well, you know what really makes me nervous is when I'm doing with the cab guys. And I'll see that when
You
you're
just
doing
don't know how to use them. So.
or they stop when I come in.
Yeah.
Well, we tried to avoid that. I mean, I don't know how long it's been in effect. I've only been 4-10 years. But back in the day, the cop prime could sub their own testing agency.
Yeah.
Back in the day, and said, no, if you're holding their money, they're gonna give you the results you want.
That's right.
We'll start contracting separate, or so you don't have that conflict of interest.
Yeah, I've only had a few, you know, it goes for me, tab agencies and commissioning agencies, I've only had a few that were a questionable character to let that potentially be a problem. You know, you just gotta manage them closer. at that
Well,
point.
you know, really, especially with design build. I've had a number of cases where more on the commission side than tab, but even tab, the guy wants to get out of there, And if the relationship is what it's not supposed to be, see, the town guy's gotta get a job from this guy 2 years from now too.
Yeah.
And so even with our split, there's still you really have to watch them.
About like me last night, I was on call still at my district.
I still
And,
cuss around
that
that
board,
He's all get kind of, sure.
And the contractor, the response to technicians says, oh, yes, the reason why the boiler went out because dirty air filter. And I called my technician up to excuse me. These are rate packs. They got an exhaust fan to get rid of combustibles inside the chamber before it ignites and all. Dirty air filters. I'm like, you might want to reassess that. I called the owner now. I called the owner and said, I don't know the tech you got out there right now, but he said the reason why the boiler went down.
Relatively, you know.
Sweetness.
60, I felt really good yesterday evening when I got here. It was, I wish I had time to go, do some hiking with that. Yeah, I did Camelback 2 years ago, the whole thing, it was great.
I learned a little more
yesterday.
Yeah, about 2 hours later, I get in the plane side of Tower Night for an hour. By the time I got an hour, therefore, there's also a long time. And that come on, it's not really nice. Yeah, I'll try to have a fit.
Yeah, it's pretty intimidating climb. Yes. 1,700 feet a mile. Yep. That's getting it done. And there's two sides. I don't know what side you did. There's one side is more intense than the other. I did the more intense side. It was. I plugged in the GPS and said, okay, get here. And before you get a park, it's a mile away to park to get there because you're right there by the resort. Yeah. That's on the drive real quick. You guys feel free to tag the refreshments.
Yeah, help yourself to coffee.
If I'd have known that, I would have paid $15.15 for breakfast.
They have a good coffee bar here, let me tell you.
I was like, I figured maybe $10 for a buffet, but
Usually like me, I'm used to, having a microwave in the hotel. So the wife always makes sure I have one suitcase and then, I take stuff I can do for breakfast, So I'm looking for it. I said, what's going on? So I go to the desk and I said, I said, no, sir, we have a restaurant. So they give you a little mini fridge. They don't put the microwave in so that you're more than likely going to use their facility downstairs.
I've got a fridge, microwave, and all that. They made it perfectly clear. When they added the incidentals to my room when I was checking, I'm like, what does it look like? What it is, we got 25 a day for incidentals. We'll take that off if you don't use any of the stuff.
Sir, did you have the slides on there?
Is your breakfast there? Is it here?
Yeah, breakfast comes, they give you a card, and also breakfast is covered, so I figured, okay, I'm a retired city, let's figure out how to get around this obstacle.
TV?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went there, I really enjoyed that, right across from the airport.
Well, that's the reason why, when I called Sato, this, first time I ever used Sato since I retired from the military.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I said, here's where I'm going. Now, what is like from the hotel in the rental car?
Yeah.
Did you ever do the well drilling school in Fort Wainimi?
Oh, yeah, well,
Yeah.
kind of late.
I did it as an Army guy.
Yeah, I did it, oh my God.
1986 or late 86, I was at school.
I think mine was around 89.
I went in 86. But I only had 3 detachments of well drillers at the time, and I was one.
Yeah, I trained on the Ingersoll Range.
Yep.
And,
1,500 foot or 1,200 foot.
what's so funny is, the way I got to school is it was a 4-day weekend. I just made May 2nd. She comes walking out and says, hey, I need a volunteer. And I threw my hand up. He's like, Tyson followed me. Went to his office. He gave me plane tickets. And he's like, you got Waterwell School. You leave tomorrow. Just like that. And I wasn't too happy when I explained it to her.
There never are about short notice.
Yeah.
Bad enough when you give them a month notice.
Well, me and I've been together now for 28 years. When this class come up, I went home and took her out for crab legs before I told her to come to the class.
So while you were ordering appetizers, you said, where are you going now? Because you never do that.
Yeah, I showed up in the last meeting.
Yeah.
I'll get it.
So you've been here long enough, you can tell us where all the good eating places are, right? The steak places and.
Some, yeah.
What did you get on that?
Can't swim
Like,
with
run
Dead
all the way down to.
That's right. Yeah, honestly, I take the rail down to Tempe, and there's all you could ever want down in Tempe. It's a $2 ride to get on the rail, and awesome downtown area. You name it, they got it down there. I've been to the Greek restaurant, which was fantastic. So if you want to try some authentic Greek, that one was really good. And I'd have to look at the map again to see what all else I tried over there, but the Greek one stands out to me.
Have you ever connected to the Wi-Fi?
I haven't connected, yeah, I did. You should go to its guest, Gateway Guest.
Or
And
Gateway Open, one or the other, I can't remember.
yeah, I think it's,
Gateway Guest Open?
that sounds right. Also, I'm not sure if you still, where they are now, but there is a virtual reality place in Gobson Butt that was down in Tempe. I don't know if it's still there or not.
Damn wheels from the district.
Mark coming too?
Pardon me?
Is Mark coming too?
Yeah, he was on.
Asking all this way just to hear me? Oh, man, that's crazy.
I've been trying to get this course for like 2 years. And when I left Baltimore district, I was supposed to be in the June course. But when I transferred districts, they're like, yeah, no, you're not going under our bill, so you're good. So bad week, we had we slipped a week on the joint tournament. So they're closing the building down today. Our punch list on Friday was like, they spent all weekend cleaning. Hopefully they got it cleaned up, but they can at least get access under the floor. And on top of that, we got night work on all this week, so I got landed and locked in the building for 10 hours a night. 3 of us are gone because Richard's going to school or something in Huntsville. Eddie or Mike may have to do a night shift this week when they start flushing. They get to start that 24-hour flush. So it's going to be crazy. Yeah.
It's the same way at Hunter office.
Stop it on here and keep that on the back.
You know Katie from the Baltimore district? So she was a QA rep up in the district office for commissioning. She'd come down and she did some work on the ice cube. And I contacted her last week about all the summer floor testing for contractors wanted and can't do. Gave me a really good ASHRAE article on DISA, and they did the same underfloor testing and described how they did it. And
Yeah, I talked to Mike and Marsh about that last week. I know a guy that's done lots of underfloor testing, and he's actually tried to get himself involved in our project. We haven't for some time why, but he said, just on the surface, he doesn't know any reason why they should not be able to do that. And that's what I told Mike. I'm like, we need some. If you're going to tell me this is a problem, then tell me why it's a problem.
Yeah.
Give me some numbers.
I think the big question right now is because they did divide it off into zones based on the air handlers with underfloor 10. But I don't think what was clear was, did they do that as a temporary, or was the design, were they segmented zones by design, which we don't have that. We just have open plenum from one end of the building to the other. That's what they're proposing to do, is to put but they want to leave it up. I'm like,
I don't think so. But that'd definitely be the engineer's call. But
well, he's supposed to be out this week, so they're going to bring it up to him this week.
I can't see any reason why they couldn't do the test. If you gotta get multiple things, whatever, that shouldn't be an issue. But again, if it is, just give me some numbers, tell me why it's an issue.
Like, well, we want to use the air handler degree. I'm like, how the hell are we going to measure leakage? There's no way.
They're gonna have to go hire, most likely, a guy that does like building pressure testing. You can use those assemblies, you probably have to customize the rig a little bit, but you could use that kind of assembly or whatever. It
Well,
can be
the
done.
X-ray one they did, they showed like 5 of the standard rigs. They set up 4 or 5 different locations
Mhm.
and then sampled from 4 or 5 different locations till they got a balance of.
Yep.
Yeah. That and they were cutting themselves short because when they were figuring their leakage, they were only figuring leakage based off surface floor area, not off surface volume, not off the volume of the floor.
Yeah, Mike told me about that. I wanted to go read how that's supposed to be specified, because I don't know.
Yeah, I know. They both, him and Eddie both kind of looked at it. They both kind of wound up agreeing that they think it's volume, not.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought you'd been able to count the concrete floor surface area, but if that's normal, whatever.
Yeah.
On the ones that I've done, we did that, and I called, my friend Charles, I said, hey, this seems kind of goofy to me. They said, well, the way they look at it is, they're not going to penalize you for having a floor. And so they do the whole, sort of, that may have changed since that time, that was several years ago, but the idea was, the fact that you've got an all-slab floor,
Right.
we're not going to say, okay, let it count.
As long as the allowable leakage factor has that included in its number, great. I just want to know that's the
One
case.
factor for all the air. They don't have a different one for the floor. So we said,
Yeah, the part that was really distressing is their overall testing on the DISA project was 9 months. Now, I don't know if they phased it based on construction phasing or pretty much can't do the testing until the floor's in and all the underfloor's complete. I mean,
Right. Well, and Harvard chose to put the floors down before we did any inspections on ceiling or whatever, so it takes some 9 months. I don't feel too bad. Oh, morning.
Trying to find the Johnson Controls for that.
Don't know where it is?
2 doors up. One or 2 doors up on the left. That's where I walked through.
Gotcha. Yeah, we had one guy come in and sit down, and I was like, you got your laptop? He's like, I was told we were getting an iPad. I was like, not for this class. So I guess that must have
Those
done
have them that big.
Do we need to put the dates on the temporary?
Yes, if you want to go ahead and do that, put the dates for the week down and put that on your dash.
We don't have to go out there and do it now though, right?
No, whenever at a break or whatever. Yeah, it's gonna be fine. Yeah. This is actually the first time they've given us those, so I don't know if there must have been some sort of issue, because in past classes, we didn't even get those. It just, people park.
Yeah. Somebody whined.
Morning. Just right in. Goodies.
Oh, yeah. Good job.
Thank you. Morning, everybody. Is there anybody that didn't get the course slides downloaded? Hope everybody got super clean instructions, the slides, so we don't have a book for you guys. Does anybody need them electronically? Good, all right. Student manual, I should say. Okay. What you mean about it?
That's a wake up call right there, buddy. What you much know?
Oh, really? Well, that'll be easy. We got a good. Oh, okay. I got one or two more. Let's see if they show up in 4 minutes. Sir, if you'd like to sit here, this has got a stack of materials here for you. Or the one up front. Yeah. Either one of those. Yes, there is a Wi-Fi. It should be gateway open, yes, something like that. Yeah, gateway, yes. Yeah, something like that. And there's no password. We just do that password here at the house. I'll show you there. All right, it's 8 o'clock. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. We still got one that's not here. Hopefully they'll find their way here. Good morning, everybody. I'm Matthew Kilmer. I'm a mechanical engineer out of the Savannah district. I work out of our district office. Worked out at Fort Stewart for about 10 years and mechanical quality assurance rep. And now I work out of our district office and support our whole district from a mechanical technical support standpoint. We've also got Victor Ewing is our other instructor. Victor, you want to give us a brief introduction, please?
Oh yeah, my name is Victor Ewing. I work in the Tulsa District Central Oklahoma area office. We work out of the Tulsa District office. And for a number of years, up till 2001, I was engaged in the design of HVAC systems and other building systems. And then I got transferred to Tinker and was project engineer for a while. And they became the area office. I became the area mechanical engineer. And I just do a variety of things and kind of ebbs and flows. Sometimes I'm really heavy in HVAC, sometimes it's commissioning, and sometimes it's in a who knows what. So that's kind of me, my beginning experience with TAB. Back the time I was in the district, back in 1983, there was a 1983 for you guys that old. And TAB was actually kind of new. And before I came to work for the Corps, I worked for an architecture and engineering firm. And we were starting to incorporate some of the things into our design that were necessary for TAB. So one of my first jobs to go out and see what was going on, or had gone on, was a TAB project that I'd done through the Ellis Air Force Base. And that was kind of my initial jump into TAB. And from a skill standpoint, I was kind of concerned as I watched things, because in the design side of stuff, you really need to know TAB. And I talked to my supervisor about it, and we got an arrangement with OSU Technical to come out once a week and give us courses in TAB. And we did that, and we had a lab, and we went to that. And I continued on, and later I discovered that the Corps had TAB course. And I don't think I went to the top, but Jim Snyder did. And Jim Snyder was a friend of mine, worked for myself. And because of Jim, this TAB course became a lab course. It changed everything a lot. So that's kind of a little me and TAB.
Okay, sorry about that, you guys. And so, yeah, a little more about me. So I've focused on tab and commissioning efforts. I'm not a design guy. I've been in construction my whole career. So quality assurance of tab is something I've pretty much done my whole career. This class will hopefully better prepare you to do that. We can't make you an expert in 1 week, but we can hopefully introduce you to a lot of concepts and standards that let you be better at doing quality assurance of tab. That is the focus of this class. And that being said, I'd like to go around and do some introductions. Tell us who you are, where you work, and what your particular interest is in this class, what you're hoping to get out of it. And hopefully we can cover all those things as we go. If we can start down here, please.
Yeah, my name is Cecil Ramsey. I'm with Public Works at Cody Base Lewis McCord, which is formerly Fort Lewis and McCord Air Force Base. I was the life safety systems manager there, which was fire protection. We lost our HVAC guy. We actually had quite a bit of turnover, and since I successfully managed the fire protection program, they thought maybe I could get a handle on mechanical systems. So I'm not doing mechanical, and we hired a backfill for my life safety. So I'm diving into the whole mechanical realm, mechanical engineer by education.
Gotcha.
Good.
I'm Joe Hogan. I'm from Savannah District. I work at the Thurman Power Plant. I'm a mechanic there.
Glenn Murphy, Corps of Engineers, lead quality controller at the Arc Cyber Project in Fort Detrick. Fort Court. I'm a heavy civil guy from past, so I've been trying to learn as much about mechanical as I can because for the last 10 years I've been thrown on HVAC systems. So.
Mark Propolis, mechanical intern at Fort Gordon in Savannah District, and trying to get caught up.
Justin Bader, project manager, New York District, Fort Drum. I'm a civil guy, so when I look at a SWIP, I can see that huge thick manual SWIP. I can decipher. I know where the numbers came from. When someone hands me one of these tabs or commissioning things, it looks like I'm looking at Chinese. So,
well, hopefully we're going to something here to get you better through the weeks, right?
My name is Greg Jacobs. I'm with the Mobile District, South Alabama office, Maxwell Air Force Base, Gunner Annex. I'm a mechanical engineer, TA intern, and I've been tabbed as a project engineer, and I'm going to be doing a lot of this.
Okay. Gotcha. Sorry.
I'm Kevin Borges. I'm with the Portland District, the Fox Creek Lake. Power plant mechanic. Been with the Corps for 3 years. I was with the Navy for 30 years.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm Nakamoto. For Iwakuni, Japan, and I working with the people as they work with the Japanese government, and it takes 8 years.
John Bird, mechanical engineer out of Philadelphia. Just looking to broaden my knowledge base here. For maybe about almost 4 years now.
Design engineer?
Correct.
Greg Sipes out of Fort Carson, Corps of Engineers, project engineer, mechanical engineer, and trying to hone some of my skills on the tab side.
Patrick Burns, Little Rock District. I'm a mechanical QA. I do this stuff, basically all the time. I've had this course before, but not, it's been several years ago. Just trying to get refreshed on it.
If you can help us teach them.
Travis Shimizu, I'm the intern for chapter at Hulu District. This class just to pretty much get an introduction to now. Tristan Ang, Honolulu District, mechanical designer, get more experience.
Gotcha. Sorry.
Rick Walsh, Army Corps at Philadelphia District. I'm from my joint base, Dixon Water Lakehurst, QA, and I've been doing I worked for myself for 25 years, general contractor. And I came over with government about 3 years ago, Army Corps about 1.5 years ago. So I've been taking this class to help me, better do my job.
Yes, sir.
My name is John Mack. I'm out of the Huntington District. I work on one of their repair parties as chief engineer. Just hope to broaden the scope of understanding.
Okay.
John Tyson, out of Charleston District, QA and trying, as well as the COR, and I'm trying to understand more about the testing process.
Okay.
Dennis Gilpin, worked out of Kansas City District, Fort Leonard with office, with Florida Sheriff's. My first class is to hopefully come back home.
Sandra Wolf, Fort Leonard, also Kansas City District. Mainly do ops engineering, but backfill as QA. Kind of want to find out, learn more about the process, but also be able to incorporate or understand what all is involved for scheduling purposes.
Okay. Danny Hillendorf, Omaha District, mechanical engineer, a little bit of QA and contract resources.
Okay. So construction division now?
Yep.
Joel Woods, Omaha District Construction Division. I was able to take the other course of commissioning QB and learned a lot. I hope to learn just as much this course.
Chad Crosby, I'm a mechanical design engineer for the Middle East District. We're the Middle East District, but our office is located just west of Washington, D.C. I just want to learn more about that.
Great.
Moses Henderson, Fort Gordon, DPW, mechanical engineer with design practice. It's kind of the same thing, whatever I can.
Sure.
Robert Quintanilla with Seattle District, QA. Just trying to learn about the process of the HVAC testing and balancing.
David Wright, Little Rock District. I just joined the Corps a couple months ago, so I'm just trying to broaden my knowledge of HVAC systems.
Gotcha. What's your discipline?
Mechanical engineering. Hey, John Scott from New York Army National Guard. I work in the facilities engineering department. We do a lot of design, bid, build, project management, backgrounds, mechanical engineering, and just trying to be a little bit smarter on the whole commissioning side of things.
Sure.
Brian Dalton, Portland District, mechanical engineer, just trying to build a good basic commission.
Design engineer.
John Sherman, Memphis District, journeyman electrician by trade. Just recently took a position as a QA. And one of our projects is for the VA that I'll be overseeing is redoing a bunch of HVAC. Kevin Clark with the St. Louis District. I'm an engineering technician for construction. I was an electrician for 12 years before I worked for the Corps. We're finally getting vertical construction, so no one in St. Louis really knows how to do any of this. So gotcha. I get to be the expert. On NGA? No. Kansas City's got that for now.
Jim Harris, Huntsville, civil engineer, Florida Sheriff's.
Okay.
Jerry Erickson, Wilmington District, Fort Bragg office, military construction.
You work with Mr. John McCormick?
Say again?
You work with Mr. John McCormick?
Oh, yeah.
He worked with me for many years.
Yep, we got it.
Jason Stallware, Corps of Engineers, Louisville District, out of the Louisville District Office, mechanical engineer, of course, since about 2007. Background's a mix of project engineer work, construction level mechanical support, and engineering division work.
Thanks a lot. So as y'all see, we've got a wide array of backgrounds in here. That's one of the challenges with this course. Got a good bit of construction type reps and project engineers in this. Only it's about half or so. So that's one of the challenges of this course. I'm just trying to make sure everybody takes something away from this. And we certainly look for your feedback as we go through this to let us know if we can do a better job of that. We got 4 guys that teach this course. We take it very seriously, and we try to adjust it to your needs. So please let us know as we go through here. We welcome questions. We may defer some of your questions if we're going to talk about it later, just to keep up with our schedules. We do have a pretty good tight schedule. But yeah, we'll see. We will. I think everybody, from what I heard here, will hopefully walk away with something good from this class. Cover some of the admin side of things. So we are located here. Restrooms, one set is down this hallway to the left. The other one is down this hallway to the right. We'll be in the classroom today and tomorrow, and you guys will get to do the really fun part, the labs, on Wednesday and Thursday. Those days, closed-toed shoes. We do have safety glasses for you. Pants are definitely needed on Wednesday and Thursday. It might be cold. We will be outside, so if it's cold, make sure you bring a jacket. This portion is outside. In case of a fire drill, we will go out to the sidewalk and down to the gateway sign down here. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but if we do, we will be down here at the corner where the big gateway sign is. That's going to be down, that's not the right classroom. We are down here. We will go down to this corner down here. That way, if we have an emergency. I've got a slide that talks about lunch later. I'm going to go ahead and mention it because I got the map up. Walking options are limited. This taco stand is basically straight out that door across the street. It's really good. The cafeteria is if you go out that door and hang a left, going north, school cafeteria is there. I requested if they could get us a menu. Haven't got that yet. I'll let you know what they have, but it's pretty good. That's really about it walking distance. There's a couple of things, not need lobster, Jack in the Box down this way. I wouldn't want to walk it for the lunch break that we've got. If you got a car, you can do that. There's a couple of things back up on Van Buren down this way. And then there's also like Ruby Tuesdays and stuff down that way if you've got a car. But these are pretty much our options for walking distance. All right, to complete this course, I'm just going to walk through these bullets. You got to be here every day. I think that goes without saying, but we had a guy that decided that golf was more important than class one time. So you do have to be here every day and participate. Participate in class discussions. We're going to have a lot of open discussions. Try to do some lessons learned. Assign classwork. We're going to have examples as we go. There's going to be certain points in here where we're going to do some math. Hopefully everybody likes to do some math. Math is a part of tab. We'll probably ask you at certain times to maybe minimize your screen because you guys do have the answers in the material as we go. But we'll get you to do some examples as we go. We will have a pre-test here in a minute, a post-test. And please don't guess on these. If you don't know the answer on this pre-test, please don't guess. This test is not really grading you as much as it is grading us, making sure that we delivered the content to you. So we want to know that you learned something when you left. So again, please don't guess if you don't know the answer on this pre-test.
So you want us to not give an answer? Correct.
Don't give an answer. Oops. Don't give an answer if you don't know it, please. We want to know that we taught you something.
We can just leave it all blank.
Yes, there you go. Really good. Quiz is a new thing. There's a quiz every day. Just kidding. We don't have any quizzes. Practical exercises, we'll go through those. Those will just be really more discussions. We will have some group activities tomorrow going through tab reports and submittals. We do need you to do the registration form. That's your green form. If you haven't started on that yet, please do. And the end of course evaluation. This one. So this is your chance to tell us how good of a job we did. We read every single comment that you write. Even the instructors that don't teach this session will read these. We value your feedback. They didn't give you very much room to write. If you need more room, feel free to give us another piece of paper that tells us. I'd love your feedback on every single section that we go through. Let us know, if you want to take notes as we go, tell us what was good, what was bad. And if we could present it in a different order that would help you, please let us know. And got to be here on the last day, Friday. We will start at 8 o'clock every day unless we make a group decision to not. On that note, I meant to add this, if everyone would please silence their cell phones when they get here. If you have a special medical need, please let us know. We will accommodate you as best as we can and find you the help that we can to assist you if we can. Contact info, the two in red, Matt and Victor, put our numbers up there. I also put my email up here. If everyone could, when you have a moment, send me an email. I'm going to send you something that wasn't in the download that you got, and we're going to go over tomorrow. So sometime today, if everyone, please send me an email. I'm going to send out another file. Tracy is our course administrator. She's basically our boss for the week, but she couldn't come these 2 days. Somebody from Huntsville is going to come on Wednesday and Thursday just to kind of monitor how the contractor does with the session. So there will be one more administrator here. Transportation complex. So Friday, we are scheduled until 12. We will likely run to that time. We will know better tomorrow, by the end of the day tomorrow, if we're going to be able to move anything up. But if you need to get out of here before 12, I can't promise you that. The schedule does go to 12. Kind of depends on how the class goes. If we're going to be able to move it up, discussions, questions can push it right there to 12 sometimes. Smoke-free campus. If you want to smoke, go all the way out to the public sidewalk back there, please. For lunchtime, we will lock the doors, but computers are you guys' responsibilities. We'll lock them. Somebody may be here, somebody may not. I don't know if anybody will be here or not, but we're not going to set responsibility for the laptops. You guys make your own decision if you want to take them with you or not. At the end of the day, I would definitely take them home with you. For lunch, I already covered that. I did that because I don't have a map after this slide. For dinner, and we put a little safety bullet up here. We're in an urban area. We've been advised that that's kind of a bad part of town over here. Just wouldn't recommend going on foot down in that area. Don't know of any particular issues, but that was just kind of the general message that just don't walk down that way on foot. For dinner, if you're staying here locally, you can get on the light rail, which is back here behind us. It's $2. It'll take you down to Tempe. It is a wonderful area, nice downtown area, great atmosphere, lots of restaurants. That's pretty much what I'll do for dinner, is the light rail down that way.
And it's cheaper than parking down there.
Yeah. So I think it's $2 each way, so it's $4 for the ride there and back. But it's worth it. It's a nice area. I went to the Greek restaurant down there last time. Authentic Greek. It was really good. We normally talk about the maps, but Gate actually put in your student manuals this time. They put the light rail maps in there, so it'll have a lot more information than we had covered on the slides for that light rail. Has all the stops on there. Registration form. Actually, we need to pass it. Do you have the roster? Please pass that around.
We're gonna start passing it around back here. Someone's already signed in, but so you don't need to again. Key thing on your telephone number is it's one that we can get a hold of you here if you need to for something.
Yeah, if there's an emergency. We do ask for your hotel as well. We put that on here, but they actually added that to the form, so we don't need your hotel on the registration. That's just in case there's an emergency. We want to know where you are. Like I said, one time we had a guy that didn't show up, and that presents a problem for us. We want to know where to find you if we need to. And if you want to give us an emergency contact number for you, by all means, feel free to do so as well. If anybody has any questions over the registration form, please let me know. I put the course number and the session number up here, 068 1901. Sound like most folks were from the Corps. You've probably seen these before. The org code would be your district code, like for Savannah's SAS. If you don't have one, I think this gentleman may not have one. Don't worry about it. Any questions over the form, please just let us know. This just kind of details all that. Again, just let us know if there's a problem with that form. Already discussed the end of course evaluation. One other thing that is new for us were these. They do want you to please put the dates on here and go put these on your vehicle. As long as we get them out there we'll take a break right after we get done with the pre-test. Please go run these out there and put these on your vehicle dated. Questions over the administrative side of things? Okay, I'm going to go over our schedule instruction real quick. Everybody should have a copy of this. If you don't, or if you want one, please let me know. One of my highlights, that's what I was highlighting compared to the slide. So we just went through the registration. We're about to do our pre-test. Next picture will give a pretty good intro to HVAC. And this, we actually added this about 2 years ago because of a lot of folks, like you heard going around the room, not necessarily a whole lot of background on HVAC. So this is to try to cover all there is to know on a fundamental level of HVAC. Hopefully, please let us know how that session goes, because it is relatively new for us. Equations and psychometrics, there comes a lot of math. Hope you guys like math. We're going to do a good bit of math in the week. Again, tab is math. If you're going to start checking what the tab guy is doing, you got to be able to do the math side of things. It's very important. So we're going to be focusing on a lot of equations as we go. Air distribution systems will be a lot of the individual pieces of equipment and types of systems that there are from the air distribution side of things. We'll take a lunch, and then I will cover for the rest of the evening airside measurements and balancing, so focusing more on the instrumentation and the actual measurements that are required to be taken, and also a little bit on the procedures that a tab guy uses when checking out an entire building. So I'll save the instruction for tomorrow, but that's what we're going to be doing today. And I'm going to go ahead and pass out a pre-test. and let you guys work on that. Let's see, hopefully everybody can be done. We'll give you till about 8:45 if possible, and if you need more time, let us know, but go ahead and take a little break after that, and we'll get started back again at about 8:55. Yeah, blue form will be your test form. They like it. That's great. Yeah. And I'm sorry, I missed one thing looking around. Sorry, y'all. I saw a few folks that initially didn't have laptops out. The slides that we're going over is in a student manual. It looks like everybody's starting to bring them out now. They are electronic. You don't get a book. So if you want to follow along with us, you need a laptop. And if you don't have the student manual, let me know. I've got a portable hard drive I can give it to you on. Everybody have a pretest? And I got one question. I want to clarify the wording on this answer that we have. So, question number 11. We have like the wording on it. It says, what type of airflow is measured for system balancing? The intent of this question is not really what's measured, but which airflow rate do we use? Which airflow rate gets reported in the report? Okay, so not necessarily measured. What's the final product that we're wanting out of that? When you get done, if you would, please give us back the pretest, your answer sheet, and your registration form up here. So we can go ahead and take the parking permits out of your car following break here. So
When I took the training yesterday to test like line things. Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, it's all done. No, yeah, that's anybody. No.
Yeah.
Every day.
There's a lot you won't have to worry about. Other than getting like.
Annoying.
I know.
Actually, there is. I should look at my
Right. Yes. I got two. I still get I don't care. No,
Thank you very much. Did everybody get the roster? Did I made it all the way around?
I did not.
Wait, is this the one they signed away that they left the certificate to be, or is that another?
This is how we want it to be on your certificate, yes.
Okay, you're sure that when you put your name on there, that you have it the way you want it to be on your certificate? So if you have any corrections to what you did previously, let us know, and we'll work with you. I think we'll just go ahead and, that's it. I think we'll just go ahead and kick off. Everyone's here, and we're ready to go, and fall later, who knows, I'll try with you. All right, we're getting ready for introduction to H. And our purpose in this right here is to describe HVAC, identify parameters affecting thermal comfort and ventilation, evaluate energy efficiency considerations, identify room and building heat loads, discuss HVAC in terms of heat movement, describe how airflow requirements for room spaces are determined, and understand the impact of balance. Identify the basics of air and water system components, and identify and describe problems that can result from poor balance. Before we go any further, how many of you think that test and balance is a sure thing and every job everywhere is going to happen? How many of you are aware that right now there are people that are saying, you know, we can get rid of the whole place? Okay, well, that's kind of going on right now. And one of the things that I'm hoping that we really get a good grasp of here in this class is why we do it, why it's important to the owner, and this case, the owner being the government, but it is really important to everybody. And there's a lot of misunderstanding that goes on around this, and even in our own organization, because what it is that we're trying to accomplish by test and balance. So it's my hope as we get a grasp of these things, we'll see how it fits into the overall picture, and I'll give you a clue for something that we don't have on our slides, but it's an underlying concept, and that is that tab is one of the areas where we show, first of all, that the system can perform as designed. Second, and a very important thing, is that the components perform as specified, scheduled, and then tested. And some of this goes into tab, and there's a little bit of back and forth between who's supposed to be doing what. But in our specs, we require as required. If you don't do that, you turn over a building that nobody has verified the stuff that's there, even the stuff that's supposed to be there, or that it's installed properly. And we'll get into some of that later, some things that go wrong during installation. You got the right parts, you got everything there, but it's not performing. So tab gives everybody a ground zero to start with. It's really hard to even claim a problem with warranty if there's been no tab, because you can't show that it ever worked. So tab is very fundamental. And I'm a member of ASHRAE, and I've seen these articles, well, we really need to do tab because we know we can. Oh, guys, there's a big picture. So if we get a grasp of these things, it gives us a big win up on those things. The course as a whole is we have the introduction to HVAC, which is this part. Next, we're going to dive into a really exciting part, which is called equations. You'll love it. And next, I hope, next is psychometrics. And then we'll go to air distribution, fans and airside measurements, airside balancing. Then we'll go into pumps and hydraulics, overview of the standards, specs, the sound measurement, and labs, and finally we'll touch on controls.
You also be doing controls in lab. We won't do a lot with it here in class. We'll do some, but your lab will really be the place where you can see it. So what is HVAC? It stands for heating, ventilation, air conditioning. And air conditioning actually includes humidification and dehumidification. Very often now when we think of air conditioning, we just think of cooling. The overall picture, when we talk about air conditioning, that includes things like filtering and getting it in the condition you want the space to be in, for the space to be like. So those two bottom items are really a part of the air conditioning. Thermal comfort. What is thermal comfort? That's a really good question. And we spend a lot of money, a lot of time trying to define thermal comfort. But let's talk about from the occupant standpoint. We've got a guy who's in an area that there's air moving past him. It could be wind, fans. There's air moving past him. The area around him, the temperature is 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Relative humidity is 50%. And the sun is shining on him, so he's got some radiant heat in his body. And so we've got the air moving past us, radiant heat. We're standing in some air, some ambient temperature we see there. So what is the temperature? Well, the temperature that he's feeling, which is not the weatherman's feels like temperature. Well, my hobby horses, but really that's one of the stupidest things. Anyway, is he's feeling about what he'd feel like if it's 74 degrees and 50% relative humidity. So there's a difference between what the occupant senses and the actual air temperature around him. This gets really radical, and you notice this when it's how many of you guys have experienced where it gets really cold? Okay, it's really cold. And have you ever been standing in an area where you had 100-degree air blowing on you? You're in a room that's, let's say, 70, 75 degrees. You got 100-degree air blowing on you, and you felt kind of cool. Anyway, that can happen. And the reason is because the evaporation off of your body is high enough to offset any conduction you get from the air, and you feel that evaporation. We'll talk a little bit more about that. That's related to something called wet bulb, and you'll see that later. So this air moving past the guy evaporates moisture off the skin, and that's one of the things that makes the temperature feel lax. So thermal comfort is comprised of all these things, and we're trying to deal with it. ASHRAE Standard 55 is a standard that addresses thermal comfort. And the conclusion is that really you're doing good. You've met the criteria. If 80% of the people are satisfied, that means 20% aren't. And I'll level with you. In my experience as a designer, I have never, ever had people come to me and say, we're really happy because 20% of our people are not. And so some criminals thought, so all the criminals would have to go out there and figure out and make everybody tighten that number. But as an overall standard, that's considered pretty good. A lot of work was done with this. I think it was K-State or KU that does a lot of research on this sort of thing. And if you really want to get into some interesting stuff, that's something you can read if you like that. The conditions vary depending upon your male, whether you're male or female, your age, your activity level, clothing, a bunch of different things that go into that. Right here is some comfort charts, and let me just kind of trace them out here. If you're wearing what they call we have a way of rating clothes, and I believe that's an ASHRAE 55 also, in which you can, for any given clothing combination for male or female clothing, you can come up with a clo rating, which is basically an kind of an insulation rating for clothing. And so here for a clo rating of about 1, you have something that goes from about, let's see, that's about 1% relative humidity, 71, up to, and right here's where that goes to about 78, 77, something like that, 1%. And then we go up here at the high end, and we're sitting at, let's see, that's a 70% there, 60% there, is what that's 65%. Those of you that are back further can see better than me. And then we go over here to about, what is it, 95%. And temperature is about 67. So if you're wearing a clo about 1, you'll probably be comfortable in that zone. And that's a little bit hot if you're wearing or cold if you're wearing a clo of 0.5. And you can see those temperature ranges. I think that's in your slide. It should be. You can see that range is a little bit different. You see the overlap there. I think clo about 0.5 is pretty like light summer. So that kind of gives you an idea of how clothing itself affects the comfort of the person. The HVAC systems are designed to be capable of meeting the acceptable ranges of humidity and air velocity. And that's also part of the design, something we don't address in TAP, but it is part of the design. If we have troubles, that's something we'll check when we go to the space. And typically, we'll control one or two of those parameters you'll see. For cooling, we'll often attempt to control what we call the dry bulb temperature. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. And something we call the wet bulb temperature, or the dew point. For heating, generally we just look at heating. Now there are some cases that's just temperature. Some cases will actually include humidity in that. So fresh air, its purpose there is to dilute outside, it's just dilute stuff from the inside that are hazardous, irritating. More of those things that we included, that's actually included in that is microbes. When people come to the office, very often we've got various illnesses that come along with this. And so if we ventilate properly, we keep that concentration down. It's a major thing for hospital ventilation, healthcare ventilation. Makeup air is the air that we bring in to offset the air that we have to take out. That's kind of just a summary of it. Because we're going to have exhaust, we're going to have leakage, and that's what the makeup air is all about. ASHRAE 62.1 defines the required amount of fresh air and exhaust. And just to note, a term that doesn't show up except in the appendix in 62.1 is relief. Because in ASHRAE 62.1, all the air that's taken out of the building is called exhaust, and they don't really care where it comes from. Cooling and heating, the humidification of fresh air is turns out to be a very significant load. One of the bigger components of that is in a good deal of the country, is the moisture in the air. We're going to need enough to maintain a healthy condition. Too much, too little gives us problems. We can have thermal comfort problems, indoor air quality problems, humidity, mold, and that very often is associated with leakage into the building. And then the coil freeze up and excessive consumption of energy. Our goal is to meet thermal and comfort needs with a minimum amount of energy usage. That means the ventilation, the outside air that we bring in is key that we get that right. We don't want to overcool, overheat, or overventilate. Tab installation has impact on quite a few things. And dampers closing to close off the airflow instead of changing the speed or turning the impeller. What we need to do that's a partial loss if we drop across that damper. So we try to minimize that, and we'll talk more about what we do because they're going to have to be dampers closed. But we'll talk about what we do to minimize system energy losses. And then the pipe's too small, that's usually a design problem. And that needs to be, if we discover it during TAP, that's another reason why TAP is so important. We can go back to the design entity and say we believe that we have a problem here, show us that we do. So here we have a typical space. We've got energy input from the sun shining through the glass there. We've got lights, wind conduction through the wall. We have infiltration, exfiltration. And then inside, we've got a people person. Let me find my little. Oh, that was clearly the wrong thing. There we go. We have our little people person. We have our equipment, and we also have coffee. The coffee maker, a really important part of the equipment in most offices. Lighting. So those are our heat loads: lights, conduction, people, equipment. Extra things like coffee, infiltration, exfiltration, solar gain. And these things are called sensible loads. Does anybody know what is the difference? What kind of loads we have? Let me just start with that. We have two kinds of loads. One is the one you feel. That's sensible. We can sense it. The other one I'm going to say is associated very closely with moisture, and we don't feel it as a temperature, but we might feel it as dewiness or stickiness or that kind of thing. That is latent heat. We got to deal with both. So let's first of all look at sensible. We've got people. Typical person gives off in an office environment about 250 BTUs per hour. Equipment from computers, printers, and all the other stuff you have in the office we've got 0.5, between a half and 1 watt per square foot. Lights, 0.5 and 1 watt per square foot. That number is coming down. Come to our design class, we'll tell you how that impacts life. Conduction through exterior walls. The more insulation you have, we know the more insulation you have, the less heat gets conducted through the walls. And then we have the solar radiation to the windows, and then infiltration. And those of us that are doing the building tests, we've seen the leakage to buildings come down a whole lot less. So that's going in our favor, but it still can be a problem. We can get hot or cold air through cracks and crevices. Major crevices are along the bottoms of the walls, tops, anywhere you got a joint, corners. Those have a tendency to be major infiltration spots. Okay, so latent heat loads. Well, people give off about 200 BTUs per hour of latent heat, evaporation off your body, moisture from your lungs. All that has to be dealt with. Then we have infiltration, as we said before, that brings moisture along with it. Then we have coffee makers, hot food, more evaporation. We've got, in some cases, we have rooms where we do laundry. So clothes coming out of the dryer may still have some moisture in them that goes into the air. Clothes that there's some, as we transfer things from washers to dryers, there's going to be some evaporation. There may be some leakage out of the dryer during the drying process that leaks into the space, more moisture. So again, moisture showers, we all know about that, even from home. Infiltration, exfiltration is uncontrolled, and it's a real problem. And so we try to pressurize our buildings, and you'll see 341001 says 0.02 inches of water. As a designer, I would never design for that, but I'd say, yeah, okay. But I designed for 0.05, and the reason is, at least for controllability, we're really down the bottom of control, and it's very, very difficult to control that. If I shoot for 0.05, and I'm plus or minus 50%, that's going to give me my low of that, and my high is still okay. Too high, and it's hard to get doors to close or stay closed. We start running into problems with the NFPA requirements that have to do with forces on doors. So that's another consideration. Not a part of this course, but that's where the 2.02 inches comes from. That's about the minimum we'd expect to see. Something that should, in my opinion, always be checked. It's easy to do. On the last step of your tab is to see that your building is positive, and you need to be sure that before you go into things, you talk to your tab guy about how he plans to do that. All right, so we're moving the air out, or moving heat out. Here's our space, room. We move it it goes from the room to the ducts, so it goes the air. Next thing we do is we take it through coils, or we exchange the heat with whatever's in the coils, water, refrigerant, something. We take that to the, it ends up getting transferred in a chiller somewhere to refrigerant, and that goes to something that dumps the heat to the outside air. So that's the process for cooling. The heat goes from here all the way out here. So we look at the process for heating. This heat pump for heating. All right, so in that case, we're taking energy from the air, and we transfer that to the refrigerant, to some coils, to some ducts, or maybe not ducts, and then back to the room. So that's our two. We have the air for the heat pump situation, with the hot air from the outside. If it wasn't a heat pump, this right here would be replaced with maybe a boiler or something, and we'd have the coils, and we'd take pumps of coils to take it into the room. So we have the flow of energy into the room, and from this case, air conditioning flow out. In the space, we bring air in. The idea here is we bring air into the room, and we mix it thoroughly so that the air going out here is the temperature of the air in here. And we're not going to go into the mechanics of that, but that's what we try to do. So if there's a problem with tab and we're not bringing air in the right places, or we're not getting our diffusers adjusted right, then this temperature here will not be representative of the room, and the room will have hot and cold spots in it. I believe it's ASHRAE 55 that also talks about what we need to do in order to get the air to go do that sort of thing for us. There you go. All right, so all airflow is not good. We count on about 20-degree rise through a room, And that's based on the airflow we've calculated for that room. If we don't get that airflow, we're going to have either more than 20 degrees or less than 20 degrees. So we need to have the correct airflow. So here is a air system. This happens to be what we call a VAV system. And I'm going to start here in the room. In the rooms, we have return air comes way back here. And some of that air gets relieved. And some of it comes back in what we call the return air. And we're bringing in air from the outside. We're bringing into this. This is called the mixing box. Just so that I'm pretty sure all you guys that have got QA experience out in the field know the mixing really doesn't. I mean, it can happen here, but you can't count on it. But that's what we call this. Sometimes we have to do something special in that box to make it work. If at all possible, and you have any choice about what's going into the project, try to get them to bring it in the duct before it gets to the air handling unit, so you've got room to mix. You might have a QL facility to promote mixing, because I've done some other after class, talk about some funny stories about mixing. I can tell you where it happens, but where it often happens. This is a place where often does. So take it through the filter. This is usually a MERV 8. That's a MERV 13 now. And then we bring it through. This coil's in the preheat position. In this particular case, we would put it in the preheat position because we want to protect our cooling coil. Other than that, it really doesn't matter a lot. If we're trying to do humidity control, we may put it either this one or another one downstream. And when we do our site charts, we'll talk about that. And I'll also talk about that, I believe, in the lab. But what I found in our area, you really need to put it here to protect the coil. And so anyway, so we come through here, we come through the fan. Since this is a VAV system, the fan speed is going to vary. Because what happens is the air goes out here, the air coming out of here is supposed to be all the same temperature, comes out of here, it goes to things we call VAV terminals or VAV boxes. These get their instructions on how much air to dump into the room. See, this is a damper there. Oh. Actually, if these things are motorized, this is a box here, it's VAV. If these are like set manually, it's constant volume. Ah, there we go, thank you. I didn't notice this is a VAV terminal. And we're talking more about details here, but as the air comes in, this is the supply side, and it will control how much air goes out here on this side. And so in essence, it's setting right here, and it's like an automatic damper. And it'll change the airflow through the space. So as the space requires more cooling, it opens up wider. As the space requires less cooling, it closes. That's how the VAV thing works. For a constant volume system, things get a little bit crazier because it'll reset these temperatures, hoping that these guys are always have the same kind of loads. And it doesn't always work so well. But on a constant volume system, we change the air temperature, the supply air temperature. VAV system, we hold this thing constant, and then we change the airflow through the space. So we're seeing more of these, unless you've got a small, like one zone unit or something, and then you'll see how to do a constant volume. But otherwise, we do the varying here. So ducts are going to take room to the spaces, and we're going to have friction, pressure drop. That's what results in friction in the ducts. Also, some obstruction there will be in the ducts. Dampers will control pressure loss to increase or reduce airflow, and then fans deliver the airflow because they're fighting the pressure losses of the system. I might mention while we're at this, though, that our major losses are rarely in the ducts. Usually it's things like filters, coils, and things inside the air handling unit. But the ducts, we're focusing on the ducts here, and so you're going to hear us talk a lot about ducts, but keep in the back of your mind that those are usually not the biggest pressure drops. We have various ways of heating and cooling and dehumidifying. We have water. In some cases, we don't see this much anymore, but we used to do a lot of sprayed coils. That's a cooling coil. They get hit with cold water or hit with water, it's cold, and it evaporates. It's a really great way of controlling dew point. But there's other problems that go with it, like keeping the water clean and stuff like that. So in some cases, we were actually spraying water into the airstream. So some coils use water, and that's almost always internal. Some use refrigerant. We have gas burners, Some are direct fire. In some cases, we can do that. Others are indirect fire. There's a heat exchanger. And then we also use electrical resistance. And that, for most of DOD stuff, that's like, if that's the only choice you got, then electric resistance. But that's a kind of a frowned upon one. Filters, they clean the air, major important thing. The fresh air, we need enough of that for health. As I mentioned before, a really key thing in ventilation is enough outside air into a room to keep the bacteria count down. The energy impact, everything we do has an energy impact. We're trying to control humidity and mold. A lot of the stuff we've done in the last several years for building envelopes helps. But the HVAC design and proper tab really affects also humidity and mold. And then we have supply air temperatures that are also affected by all these things. And then another thing we watch is freezing coils. That in one short time can mess up an awful lot of stuff. You can go thaw and stuff goes all over. Before I came to work for the Corps, I worked for an engineering firm, architecture and engineering firm, and we were the architect engineer for the University of Tulsa, kind of like their consultant. And we had a really cold year, and that year we had lots of coils freeze there. And the guys at the central plant told me how many gallons it took to run from the central plant to various buildings to get the water turned off. Freezing coils can be really expensive, not for that as much for the air handling system as for the whole building. The balancer needs to be balance of supply, return, and outdoor airflow rates, and check the heat transfers at the coil and verify fan performance. A word about, see if this thing works. Anyway, a word about, oh, there we go. A word about outdoor air, or there we go, return. We rarely do that. There's only certain circumstances in which we actually balance return. We'll look at the total return for the system, but we rarely balance individual return drips. There are cases when that happens. The way you can tell is it's marked on the drawings. It's marked on the drawings, and you go to balance it. So here's a water system. We're going to start with a pump, and we flow out to the system. We've got balance valves. We're showing them here on the, looks like the supply side. And this particular one's got what they call three-way valves. And that's got that's a valve with a bypass. So water's either going through the coil or past the coil or a combination. We don't see a lot of those anymore because we're running more and more to variable pumping systems. And so we usually have maybe one or two of those three-way valves in the system, but the rest of the valves are almost always two-way valves, which on the drawing looks like a three-way valve, except this leg is missing. So we come out here, we go through our coils, we pick up our loads, we come back to the return, and oops, come back to our return, and come back to the chiller. So here's our return line, like that, supply, goes all the way to the end there, and it goes to the last coil. And what happens when I wait for the mouse to go to sleep? All right. So the balancer is going to balance water flow rates, check heat transfer, and verify pump performance. And our problems that we're going to have if we don't have good balances. First of all, we run the risk of, go the opposite way, this is what we're looking at. The risk of insufficient airflow to cool or heated spaces, not enough water to cool or heat the air, insufficient cold water to humidify the ventilation air. Too much ventilation air can impact the energy usage. And I have to tell you on that one, when I first came to work at the Corps, we had the energy deal was not that big of a deal. Okay? It was kind of not that big. It was in the 80s. We'd gone through a deal where it was a situation at a time where it was really bad in the like 70s, and then we came out in the 80s. And one of the older engineers had a tendency to over-design his stuff. I mean, we're talking over-design. And he got this call from one of the bases. They were having problems because the unit was acting erratic. So So I went out there and you realize they have way too much code on that thing. So the question was how to increase the load so things would keep running. So he kept opening the outside air damper. Yeah. He kept opening the outside air damper until it had a big enough load that it would stay on. All right. So all this to say, in that particular case, there was a problem with the design, and our correct solution is not bringing in more and more outside air until it stays on. But that shows you the impact that outside air can have. All right. So we have not enough ventilation, and that impacts the occupant health. I mentioned that several times. And again, if those of you that have been involved in medical facilities know how big of a deal that is. Problems because of poor balance include overloading fan motors, lack of awareness regarding the problem of cooling coils in particular, and excessive energy uses. One of the problems that we found on a facility that we had was a lab. They weren't getting the cooling. And so we went out there to look, and we discovered that it was piped backwards. And so that was the reason we never be able to carry the cooling load. But compound things, you guys know things come in the factory, they're right every time, right? Anybody? Anybody? I see some questions. Okay. No, this one came labeled wrong from the factory. So the technicians that piped up by what, in and out, like it said, but it was wrong. And we were able to determine that and then get it repiped. A little bit of a review here. We talked about what HVAC is. Anyone remember? All right, there we go. And parameters that affect thermal comfort. Can anyone think of one that affects personal thermal comfort? Humidity. All right. Another one. Temperature. Temperature. Okay. Another one.
Clothing.
Clothing. Another one. We're banging these babies out.
Latent heat transfer.
Latent heat, yeah. Especially for one of the things I'm getting on my story here. We're real picky in our district about air hitting the diffusers straight on, because if it doesn't, the air, you turn a four-way diffuser into a one or two-way diffuser. And what will happen is, let's suppose that the main duct runs along here, and we come up with branches, and we hit those diffusers, and we're coming off at an angle. That means that this area right here is going to be a stagnant zone. And it doesn't make a difference how much we freeze those guys and those guys. These guys are going to feel gooey, stuffy, and hot. And they're going to, the airflow rate, that is the velocity passed through them, is going to be too low. Now, right now, you guys have air flowing by you, and it feels right, and you don't notice the air like that. But if it was too low, you start feeling stuffy. So just another note on this thing, the HVAC costs for a building's operation for a year is PUD compared to the cost of people in that building. And sometimes in our HVAC focus, we forget that the whole deal here is to get the production out of people. And once people start feeling themselves, their temperature starts to wander, and their performance goes down. And studies have been done. There was an insurance company that did it. They discovered that if they increased their HVAC costs 10% and their productivity 1%, they made money. All right, so a little perspective here. And once energy, if we have to hire 10 more people, we may not have saved that energy because they've got to drive to work. So you got to kind of remember that what we're looking at here is important, and costs associated with are important, but it's a part of the picture. And so if we make people uncomfortable, we may have really cost a lot more for the operator. Okay, so much for that little hobby horse here. Another thing that really affects thermal comfort that we haven't mentioned, because it's more subtle, is radiant heat. I worked in an office. We were a large consulting firm, and there's all the engineers. We all had offices around the outside, and then like the drafting people and those kind of guys had large areas in the middle where they worked. During the summer, people would often have their the desk arranged such that their back was to the window and their face was toward the hallway. And I like that because people kept walking in and you could greet them and it was easy to, there was a little chair for them to sit on. It was just a better way to have your office. In the winter, almost everybody turned their desk the other way. The reason is the human body is very, very, very sensitive to radiant heat loss. And it's one of those things where you can even put on more coats or more clothing, and you'll still sense that heat loss. It's a very, and so that's an awful, very important part of the picture too. We can't address it during TAP. Just know that occasionally you'll get a building in which everybody's okay, temperature springs are okay, but people are uncomfortable. It's probably.
I'll have a good example of that. We renovated an old World War II plain block building out on 4th Street. We provided air conditioning to it, heating to it. And so in the middle of the winter, you know, it is heating in that space. It's 68 degrees, but it was an uninsulated block wall. And so that block wall on a 30-degree morning, the inside of it was probably 40 degrees. And so still, those people sitting right next to that 40-degree wall, you are losing heat to that cold wall through radiant heat. They still felt cold even though it was 68 degrees in the room. So radiant heat is very important.
Yeah, that really can't be overemphasized. We have a fire station, brand new one. And the architect meant well, but he didn't know that air goes through that insulation. And so what happened was the area above the ceiling had bad insulation. And it was coming down into the wall, well, actually hit the ceiling too. So the ceiling and the walls during the winter would get down to about 40, mid-40s. We were getting complaints about fire guys who couldn't get to sleep at night. And they were putting on gobs of blankets. I'm talking gobs. And still couldn't sleep. And the temperatures in the rooms, they got up to about 80. They were still cold. So that it's something to watch for. If your complaints, you go through tab and everything's right. Check to see if there's any places for that to be. Inverse is true too. And we don't see it as much as often, but lights can have a really, if you're sitting in the right spot, you know, incandescent light over you, you can sometimes really feel it because your head is real sensitive to stuff like that. All right, so much for that little hobby horse there. Thermal comfort, ventilation requirements, those are largely set by, well, I'll just say they are set by ASHRAE 62.1 and has a number of things that are associated with that, including dealing with odors, which can reduce. Let me just step off a minute. How many of you guys have heard about sick building syndrome? You don't hear a lot about it. In the 70s, it was decided we had an energy crunch, and people looked at what we could do. One of them was reducing outside air. Well, what ended up happening was people started noticing smells. And I'd like to say that, you know, these are just people who weren't like too stable with the world this way. People started feeling sick. And pretty soon the whole building would be full of sick people. And we get to the place where people actually developed chemical sensitivities. And the problem was that they were psychosomatic. You know what that is? Psychosomatic stuff can kill you, really. I mean, it's not, you know, we can say, oh, it's your head. Well, let me tell you my psychosomatic story, okay? I'm Mr. Touch, all right? A lot of stuff isn't involved. And the first time I flew an airplane, I don't get motion sick. And they had told me that there was a little bag that they put that was in front of your seat there. If you get really sick, you just grab out the bag and do your, you know, in the bag. So I'm sitting there and I lean back in my seat and I'm going, oh, well, I'm not going to get sick. And then I'm going, oh, I'm not going to get sick. Pretty soon I'm thinking, I'm going to barf. So I look out the window. I knew what to do. I'm making myself sick. We had a project at Tinker in which we brought in some drums, and the purpose of those was to put PC valves from lights. They were empty. We brought it in on pallets, sat them down, and I think they had some placards on, but you couldn't see what it said. And people started streaming over to the medical occupational health clinic with headaches, nausea, burning eyes. The barrels are empty. Okay, that's how powerful this is. And so one of the things that since we've adopted the standards in ASHRAE 62.1, that you hardly ever hear of sick building syndrome. But let me just tell you how you fix sick building. Everybody in? That's right. You can't just replace everything inside. You can't even just replace the mechanical equipment. Downtown Tulsa, there was a building that got a reputation for sick building syndrome. It was empty for several years. Somebody came in and bought it, gutted it, and all new stuff. leased out the spaces, and about 18 months later, the building was empty. They just got tear down. So that's just something you need to be aware of. That's the way, as people, that's the way we are. And we'd like to say that some of us are probably tougher than others. But the bottom line is, once somebody gets affected by this, your body doesn't know the difference. And so it's a pretty serious thing. Anyway, back to this energy efficiency. This real important tab helps us meet those things. We talked about the building and heat loads, moving heat in and out of the building, the space flow, and we'll learn more about the relationship between load and air as we go on. We talked about some air components and their role in balance, and some water system components, and a little bit about, especially the last little bit here, about floor balance and some of the effects it can have on us. Do we have any questions, any comments, any experiences? Okay, well, my suggestion is, what time is it here? It is 9:30. Do you think we're going to take a break? Okay, let's take, how many minutes do you think? Just, are we 10-minute break? 10-minute break? Okay, are we back in 10 minutes? I'm missing 2 registration forms. Everybody still has their green registration form. Please do that experimental project. Yeah.
We came in with one building for 80 pounds.
Yeah.
They did it because the 2 buildings were signed and they were trying to get their costs. Okay, we can do this cheaper. I'll never forget it cheaper. Even with just a small outside chiller, you guys still cover the power energy.
Even that radius. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's something.
We have multiple failed radiuses. Point for the contract. Yes, the one that you're ready to do.
You got the roster?
That was just, yeah, that's green one. That was that.
Yeah, AC's not authorized.
I would like
No cool. So I'll bypass. So that's one of our things now, we just get designers to design a building with thermal mass, control radius.
Your radius, is it gas power, or is it hot water, or what?
Hot water. We typically go, if we do authorize cooling, it'll be like, it'll be a air-cooled chiller, and our preferred heating source is a hot water. If it's a smaller system, we'll do some heat or heat pumps or something like that.
Where do you guys look?
South Seattle.
So,
Cold temperature, barely freezing. And usually our average summertime temperatures are in the 80s. Sometimes it gets above 80s for, we're talking hours, or maybe a couple days a year.
Yeah.
So very mild climate. But designers, when you tell them no AC, they don't know. No idea. Because our mandate from IMCOM is to reduce our energy consumption this year alone by $1.2 million. And yet they want to come in and design high energy consumption. Geez, everything from admin to maintenance, or aircraft hangars, aircraft hangar. It's nothing for us to have an ordinance 4 years after anticipated DOD, and we still don't have a working mechanical system. It won't heat. Just what they undersized the heating systems. I think primarily, well, usually what happens is we have a standard design system. It's just a big box. It's standard design is for mechanical heating, mechanical cooling. So if they don't know AC, okay, we'll give the AC out. And then the building doesn't account for all the passive air chambers, night flash, thermal mass, solar day, and all that. So we have nearly 100% mechanical systems. Yeah. I own mechanical systems. I'm the systems manager. Right. So they're all now. I just do the Azure.
Yeah, we'll touch base. Commissioner, of course, they just
I'll be doing that.
yeah, I love to be able to, because it's so, it's really up.
When you get on the tab, you do design, you build it, you tab it, you commission it, it doesn't work, here's your bill. Okay.
Yeah, that's a real problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing too, that I recommend, just because I just go,
Yeah.
is the design class. Yeah, I'm also an instructor for class.
Sure.
And that gives a lot of underlying stuff.
Yeah. You know, one of the problems that we're faced with in that vortex and they rehab buildings and stuff like that. One of the things that will turn over a building is design for a classroom. And you have big army in there, classroom 21, and restructure that 30, computers, units. Wall, TV, stuff like that. Then they start complaining about, well, we can't get enough cooling in here. It's not working correctly. And so we go out there and bring the handfuls of classroom. That was designed for projectors, screens. Yeah. That's at the table, right? And I said, y'all increase the heat gain, the heat level here. I said, the only way you can do it is maybe put in another system. So what they had to do in some of their battle simulation workings is go to the cyber system. And find that road. Yeah. Have their own system. And they spent, $6 million for redoing this building back. Now they have spent $20,000.
Yeah, I get frustrated with our planning department because they assign buildings and then they give a building to somebody, they'll be a maintenance building and what the user needs is classrooms. And then I want to turn that maintenance building into a classroom environment. Like, why do you even give them that building?
The repurpose or stuff like they know what they're using for. But the designer doesn't get all that. And then they're like, well, you just spend $10 million on this. You probably have this. Yeah, okay. Because you get it's like, right. Because as for them, the first way to say, oh, this is design process. No, big army decided to repurpose the room. We got a building right now. We're right now.
Or, like you were saying, success is defined by 80% comfort, 80% of the people. So we put a system in the building. The actual requirement was on comfort cooling. It was testing and calibration labs. You got to maintain mechanical stability in there. If you get it, we did a 97% solution, so 3% is fine. Nobody else. Boy, is that 3% big deal when it happens. You got 87% solution.
Yeah, we had built a thermostat, which is about everywhere, like a phone system. You have that.
Yeah, they're on that.
I mean, they were constantly using it.
Yeah, you just don't hook them up though.
What we ended up having to do is. We
never done that
before. We left the thermostat. And so the problem with the way they were still over there moving off. But it took care of, 75% of the capacity to be against, but we disabled most of it.
Right.
That's like a single. Yellow bean, 8 years old.
Well, that's what we have our control systems.
So much for that. PRS system. We stay with ours with all that problem stuff like that. We have are out there and we'll shoot for every other.
You're repeating.
Control problem. They're totally. Even the vendors around there, their guys.
If you're in the Army, feel free to call.
So the UFC for UFC system now, but for Army, they're going to do Air Force is pretty. Yeah, that's we're getting making sure they verify that concentration. Yeah, that's another problem. That's part of that. They're great systems for a retrofit project. Because you can
move people around.
Yeah.
Airport is bad.
Yeah, our experience on economic.
I have,
water system. And you're all a bit better.
oh, you're, in theory, it's about property. The first system we did, we used the press filters. It was a nightmare. Every system we did since the brightest fit, testing 5,000. System wound up finishing off well.
Yeah.
You still 3.5 miles on the road.
It really depends on the district.
Yeah, for leaks and a line getting cut. The other problem is because the systems are so close, you didn't necessarily know that you're having a problem with it until you hit the extremes. You just don't look, they had lost refrigerator in the system, and on a really hot day, it wasn't cooling on it well. We would determine that it was the whole system back then. Way worse.
Oh.
And then, oh yeah. And then replenish whatever.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I mean, we need to say that he said the shot guys are always so long. Because when you get 3 miles down the road, they got so many people are falling.
Let's see.
We did, okay, we got to the early game. They played it better, but we make it. But yeah, we used to do that, also, some CVs. You can tell. Where on the system?
Is that for you? Greg and myself?
We can do that. Yes. Yeah, I failed to mention, if anybody's got an SF-182 they need us to sign, just hand them back to us. We'll get them back to you on Friday. It's just a training form if you need one for your district. SF-182, training form, something, yeah, whenever, you don't have to go now, just whenever you get them to us, we'll fill them all out on Friday.
Our assumption is that the sheet has been around and everybody's had a chance to see it, sign it, print it, do whatever they need to there. So, if you haven't, raise your hand.
You just put it back there and I'll sign it. No, usually you get it signed. Some districts don't require it. They just require it. I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Anyone else fails, you can always send it back to you, they can sign it and send it back to you. That's what they really require.
So I don't like the way, like guilt trip on you or anything, but you really encourage the bringers of the goodies if you devour the goodies, okay? So feel free to enjoy the stuff over there, but take a good deal of, so to say, pride in what they do that's over and above. And they call it, this is our coffee bar. In case you want to know that you can go over there for coffee. It's our coffee bar. There's also fixes. Help yourself to the fixes. They will be there usually they're, I think we mentioned it before, they're usually there every morning, and they're pretty creative. All right, this is the thing. I know that when you guys came here, this was the #1 thing you guys came to hear, like equations and psychometrics. And I want you to know I just share that joy. Let's see here. Our objective in this really is not the equations and psychometrics, but that's kind of far up there, and we get yes.
I just want to announce, just so you guys know, I like to give everybody scores. We have distribution of help, the pre-test one. Really more to encourage questions, to let you know you're not alone, okay? So we had 31 participants here, and the people that got 0 to 5 correct were 9 people. 5 to 10 were 13 people. 10 to 15, 8 people. And 20 and above was 1. So the point being, somebody else probably had the same question. You don't feel bad to ask questions. You know, we got half the class was got about half the questions like this. So feel free to speak up. Let us know what you need to know.
Thank you. Also, as we go along, if you have any experiences to share with us, or observations, or things that you've heard, go ahead and share them. I had some really interesting conversations during the break with folks that were telling me about stuff that they'd seen and heard and done. And part of in my opinion, part of the benefit of the class is that you not only get to hear what we have to say, but you get to talk to a lot of people from other areas of the Corps and get to pick up on their experiences too. And I found that to be a really important thing for me. In fact, one of the things that probably that and some of the things that the instructors didn't agree on in the class were 2 of my big high points in my attendance and prospect courses, because I would hear 2 views of something and the pluses and minuses. Now, in general, we're pretty much on the same track, but occasionally one of us will go one way and the other go the other, and there's reasons why one of us does that and one does the other. And my goal, and I'm pretty sure it's the same as for Matt, is not that you mirror exactly us, but that you gain enough that you can evaluate the situations that you come to. And if there's more than one approach to it, you've got the pluses and minuses that have been reasonably put out in front of you. Don't think there will be as many differences here as there are in the design class, but there may be some. So what we're looking here is we're looking at determining the airflow from duct size and velocity measurements. So you got a duct, and you know what the velocity is, what's your airflow rate? The relationship between total static and velocity pressures, what is that? Understanding how density and elevation impacts the velocity measurements and heat transfer. Employ and manipulate heat transfer equations to validate or determine air and water flows. And unless we're really not taking you to the actual stuff of that you have to take the heat transfer class for. This is more the thermodynamics, temperature going in, temperature going out kind of heat transfer. So that's kind of nice. We're going to describe how airflow impacts space cooling and heating, and the amount of outdoor air in a system using use mixed air temperatures, find out how much of the outside, what the mix is, what percentage of outside air there's there. Let's see here. Let's see here, outside air, determine using the psychometric chart, temperature, humidity, energy, density conditions of air, given any of those 2 values. And then we're going to determine the flow rates at coils using the psychometric chart and heat transfer equations. And almost all of this stuff, you're going to hit, well, all of this stuff plus a little bit, you're going to get into the labs. So if you feel like you're slightly like this, that's okay. Because the key thing that we're trying to do here today is be sure that you've heard the words, you have a general concept, and you're familiar with it, so that when you hit it in the lab, if it's not really clear here, you've got the foundation for it clicking there. And you'll be amazed at how effective this combination of lab and class is. I really like it. So if our fluid mechanics, we're pretty much sticking with velocity, friction, and pressure. So that's as deep as we're going to dive, and it's stuff that we measure. So flow rate is equal to the area times the velocity, that x is times the velocity, and we have the flow rate is equal to the area times the velocity. So if we have cubic feet per minute, CFM, and we have, to find that, we multiply the square feet of area that air is moving through at a certain feet per minute. So cubic feet per minute is equal to the area of the duct cross-section times the feet per minute of the stuff moving through it. So here we've got a 12-inch by 18-inch duct with an average velocity of 1,000 feet per minute. What's the flow rate in the duct? So I'm going to look at that slide in just a minute, and I've got somebody else I've got to go with that slide. Okay, so here we got air moving along, and we have a volume that we're moving. It's 1,000 feet in a minute. We've got 1,000 cubic feet of air moving through there. So there's our diagram. And our duct is, the opening right there that we're looking at is 18 inches by 12 inches. So let's look at how we solve this thing. Okay, our flow rate is going to be equal to the area times the velocity. And this first thing right here is area. And I'll show you that where the 144 comes from. We have 18 times 12 divided by 144 times 1,000 feet per minute. And we carry that out, we see that we've got 1,500 CFM. I'm going to switch over here to something that used to just drive me nuts. Was things like that. 144. Where did that 144 come from? All right, let's see if I can slide that down where you can see it here. Okay, that 144, we have 18-inch, our area is 18 inches by 12. All right, yeah, 18 by 12 inches. So 18 inches by 12 inches, 12 inches by 12 inches. So when you multiply these two 12s on the bottom together, you get that 144. So sometimes that makes it easier to remember stuff, but basically what you do is you convert the duct dimension into feet, from inches to feet, and use that square feet number to multiply times your feet per minute, cubic feet per minute, get your answer. All right, back to our story here. So resistance to airflow, or fluid flow in air, we measure that in inches of water column. And water, we measure that in feet of water column. Pressure. I'm going to start with the bottom and work up. Total pressure, that's that TP, is equal to static pressure plus velocity pressure. So total pressure is that TP. Velocity pressure is the VP, and static pressure is the SP. Something that's useful to remember is that static pressure is kind of analogous to, let's just say I have a ball, I'm going to drop it, and the energy that's represented by the ball at this height is the potential energy. So static energy is potential energy. When I drop the ball begins to move, and it gains speed, and it gets a energy that's associated with its movement. Kinetic energy, velocity energy. So static energy gets converted to kinetic energy, and that's really what goes on here. As you go down the duct, the velocity energy is being dissipated by friction and all the things that it impacts, and it dissipates that energy. Its storehouse is a static pressure. And so if you kind of keep that in mind, it kind of helps keep some things untangled. For some people, it won't make any difference. But if you just kind of know that basically the kinetic energy is the velocity pressure, and that's what's get dissipated. And that's why, again, the design course, you understand that we look at velocity squared and come up with our losses. So and that's what gets dissipated. That's also what generates the noise, is the velocity pressures. Because with that, there's various things that happen, and noise is energy dissipation also, and that comes from the velocity component. Static pressure is the pressure with the fluid not moving. All right, so it's like my hand's out here, and except for right here, I've got the same pressure all around it. In fact, if we work back long enough, we can discover the real pressure was here too. But Something that's out by itself has air, the static pressure pushing on all the way around it, and it's the same all the way around it. So it's balanced, equal in all directions. And in some ways, this is analogous to voltage because it drives flow in kind of the way that voltage drives current. Velocity pressure is pressure caused by air in motion. So you're driving down the road, you stick your hand out, and that force you feel in your hand is because of the velocity pressure. And because it's impacting this side, the velocity pressure on your hand is higher on this side, and that you feel your arm being pushed back. That's the velocity pressure caused by air motion, and it depends on the velocity of the fluid. And those of you that have a really, now in Oklahoma, sometimes like a really quiet day, you really can't play badminton because the wind is like 20 miles an hour. And so that doesn't do so good for badminton. On a windy day, when it's like 80 miles an hour, you're kind of leaning into stuff. We are experiencing velocity pressure. That also, when is in our area, is like every so often the trucks will all be parked facing into the wind. Because if they're not, they're laying on their sides. That's a real result of velocity pressure. All right, so here's something called a pitot tube. Does anyone know what pitot tubes measure? They measure pitons. Just kidding. A pitot tube is what we use to measure air pressure. And we do two pressures at once. Coming here at the tip, we experience the total pressure because we have, at this point, so get the right part, at that point right there, that point is subject to the local. Oh, we have one of those? Thank you. Oh, we got a couple. Okay, here we go. And this, at the very end, you've seen these on aircraft too. Aircraft use these things also. The very end is a little hole, and that little hole experiences the local static pressure plus the impact pressure or velocity pressure. So that's right there. Right there, okay? Now, if you look at this tube right here, it's actually two tubes. Notice there's a tube inside the tube. We have the outer tube, that's the fat thing here, and then a thinner tube that goes all the way up there, that hole. All right, that's one part of the sensor. Then you'll notice that along the side here, I can see it well. What is our picture here of that? Anyway, along the side, I'm going to just pass this around. Is that a problem? Okay, you can look at this. Along the side are some small holes that are drilled, and they're back a ways, so they're out of the disturbance caused by the tip. Those right there sense the static pressure, because the velocity pressure, they can't sense the velocity pressure because they're not sticking out in the air. So the velocity pressure goes shooting right by, and they sense the static pressure. And what happens here is we'll connect this tube, this part of the tube right here, and this to two tubes that go to a water column. And somewhere I've got one time I was in a class and I grabbed the do not erase one and drew on the board. And I got all kinds of looks from our host afterwards. But anyway, well, anyway. Well, you know, I got the invisible ink.
I thought you were trying to draw the air there.
I take it. Anyway, so what happens is we take it to a tube that's got liquid, usually water in it, that's shaped like a U, and we connect the one end, the velocity pressure to one side. I mean, this tube right here goes to one side. It's considered a high pressure. And the other one's connected to this thing right here, which connects is the static pressure, and that's on the other side. Now, both of these push down on this column of water. And because the velocity pressure plus static pressure is higher, it pushes down the amount that's the difference. And since we know that, now we know what the velocity pressure is. And we measure that in inches of water because, well, we've just measured it in inches of water. Okay, so that's how it works, and you might get a little better idea. Remember that the high pressure one is right here on the tip. Low pressure is here. Low pressure is this right here is the high pressure outlet. and this is the low pressure outlet. Okay, let's see, I like my tool in here. So here's the equation that's used for calculating the velocity pressure. And that's equal to that number times the square root of the velocity pressure, and this would be in inches, divided by the density of the air. So the density comes into play here. Normally what's used for standard conditions, we'll talk about standard in a minute, this stuff all comes out and we end up with, because in standard conditions, if it's always the same condition, that D is always the same. So for standard conditions, they operate on that, they put it over here, we have 4,005 times the square root of the velocity pressure. So that's typically what's used. But as you can see, density plays into that. The ABC national standards, they correct for density when you're above 2,000 feet above sea level. I believe pretty much everyone does, because on our site charts, normally we'll use the same ones up to about 2,000 feet, and then we'll get corrected ones for over 2,000 feet. That's also required when the temperature is lower than 40 and higher than 100. So the density starts getting out of range when you get less than 40 and more than 100. The NEBB standards use the same 2,000 feet above sea level, and they ask for corrections outside of the normal HVAC temperatures. So if you don't know, you can always fall back on, okay, somewhere between 40 and 100. Unless your tab guy has a tighter definition of normal, then I'd accept that. But whatever is the tightest, the 40 and 100 are his. So velocity is measured with the pitot tube in order to determine the airflow rate. Density impacts the velocity readings, and it changes with elevation. Most of the equipment that our tab guys use now has ways of correcting for the density. You'll want to check with your tab guy when he's measuring stuff, whether or not his does and how it does it. With a pitot tube, it's a little harder to correct for density without doing the manual crank. And the reason is because most of the stuff that measures it isn't in the air, is not in the airstream, and so it doesn't know what the airstream temperature is. So with the pitot tube, you want to check with your guy to see if he's in an operating range that requires correction. And the key thing from us here is just know that there are times when a tab guy needs to make some corrections to his figures. Talk about it before when you do the tab prep to find out what he thinks those are. And that's really the key thing. You want to see in your tab report, if he's making corrections, that he also makes note of that he made the corrections. Density is mass volume in pounds per cubic feet. For air and standard conditions, it's 0.075 pounds per cubic foot. Water, 62.4 at, that's 8.33 pounds per gallon. And I just mentioned, I think that's water actually at 62.4, I believe it's at like 42 degrees. So specific volume is the volume of something divided the mass in that volume. So for air, specific volume is 13.33 cubic feet per pound at standard conditions, and water is 0.016 at the condition that you get 62.4 pounds per cubic foot. In fact, if you just take the reciprocal of 62.4, this is the easiest one. I don't have to keep looking at, but this one right here, water is, most of us run into this 62.4 pounds per cubic foot rather routinely. And if you want to find the density, all you have to do is divide that into 1, and you get 0.16. Liquids are considered non-compressible. Water at 200 psi, 100 degrees Fahrenheit, has a density of about 62.03. So we've got 200 degrees, which is pretty hot, and 100 degrees, 200 psi, 100 degrees, that's about body temperature. That's our density. Water at 600 psi, I mean, we're really leaning on it here, and 100 degrees Fahrenheit has a density of 62.1. So a big increase in pressure, same temperature, but we only come up 0.1% in our density. So it's pretty reasonably constant. But water at 200 degrees, I'm sorry, 200 psi and 32 degrees Fahrenheit has a density of 62.46, and that's only a 0.6% change. So we can safely say that across the spectrum for liquid water, 62.4 is not bad if you're going to use it for your density. Your max air is going to be 0.6. Pressure and temperature have negligible. So from all this, we conclude pressure and temperature have negligible effect on the density of water. Gas and vapors are compressible, so their life's a little different. At 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 14.7 psi, the density of air is 0.0763. At 120 degrees Fahrenheit, same pressure, density is 0.0684. So we've got a 10% change in density. That means its volume, specific volume went up. That stands to reason. It expands as it's heated. Air at 60 degrees Fahrenheit and 12.2 psi, that's like the pressure, that's an absolute pressure, atmospheric pressure at Denver. The density of the same air at Denver is 0.0633. That's a 17% difference. So gases are real density. You have something there? Or just no. Okay. Okay. Just for here. Okay. So gases are very sensitive to the effects of pressure on their density. Well, this is kind of almost intuitive because we know about compressed air and how much you compress the air and you get all of that air in that little tank. So obviously it's pretty dense stuff. So it's part of our experience. So pressure and temperature have a significant effect on air. Let's see here. Density is equal to 2.7 times the pressure in psi divided by the temperature in degrees Rankine. That's that R. And degrees Rankine, when you're at 0 degrees Fahrenheit, you're at 460 degrees Rankine, because Rankine, the idea of Rankine is what is absolute zero? What's 460 degrees in Fahrenheit increments below 0 Fahrenheit. So that's the R. Density is equal to 1.325 times the pressure in inches of mercury, which we don't do a lot, but the weather guys use that a lot. Mercury, the barometric pressure is inches of mercury, okay, divided by the temperature in degrees Rankine. So density in psi, you multiply 2.7. Density in inches of mercury, you multiply times inches of mercury. I'm sorry, times 1.325. So velocity temperatures, let's try this. Velocity measurements, which are used to determine flow rates, are sensitive to density. And a TAP specialist has to know about that, and you want to be sure that in cases where he's making measurements using instruments, that's a factor that he sees somewhere where he's included that effect. And it might be that for the conditions that he's considering, that he can use standard conditions and be okay. And what you're going to find is for your area, if you're up where the altitudes are higher, that you're going to always have to have him do something. In areas where you're more close to the standard conditions, not so much. And again, the same thing in temperature. Amount of heat energy in BTUs is the amount of energy is required to raise a pound of water 1 degree Fahrenheit. So we have something called specific heat, which is BTUs per pound of, in this case, water per degree Fahrenheit. So let's just suppose I have a pound of water and it is 42 degrees and I add 10 BTUs of energy to it. It's now 52 degrees. Air, a little bit different, as you'd guess. It's 0.24 BTUs per pound degree Fahrenheit. So water, we look at C sub P. These are the C sub P factors. Water is 1 BTU per Fahrenheit. We just talked about that a minute ago when we talked about the water, raising the water 10 degrees. So sensible heat for air, BTUs per hour is going to be equal to that specific heat, CCP, times the pounds per hour times the change in temperature. Now, right now, don't worry about pounds per hour because we'll put it together. But that's, if you're doing it on a mass basis, that's how you do it. BTUs are also, BTUs per hour are also equal to 1.08 times CFM times the change in temperature. This is the one you see the most often. This one right here is a little bit more accurate if you come up with the pounds per hour. But because of the way our measurements are made, this is the one that you're going to see the most often. And the constant includes the specific heat for air and water vapor density and time correction at standard time. Time, it says, correction at standard conditions. Forget the time bit. So for cooling calcs, we use 1.1. Now the reason is, well, let me just step back a minute. If I measure the airflow rate into a heating coil during the winter time in my area, the temperatures are maybe 50, 60, something like that. So I'm on the low end. The air's, the density of the air is higher. In fact, let's say 30. It's definitely on the low end. My 1.08 is not using a density high enough for what I need to do. So I'm probably going to use the 1.1. And so for that condition, I would need, if I wanted to know the energy input from the coil, I would use that 1.1. On the other hand, if I'm measuring the hot side, the air coming out, and that's where I measure the airflow rate, and I'm using a pitot tube without going through all the corrections, then I'll probably use the 1.08. So the whatever is the cooler side, if it's below 40, that one is, if you're measuring the air where it's below 40, then you'd use the 1.1. If the temperature is above 40 and less, and I forgot what the other one is they used, then 1.08 is what you use. So anyway, we'll do an example with that, and you'll kind of see how that works. Okay. Sensible heat transfer is a function of specific heat, mass flow rate, and temperature difference. That we kind of saw from that. 1.08 includes specific heat, humidity ratio, and a conversion from volume flow rate to mass flow rate based on density, as well as time. Oh, the hours to minutes. Yeah, there is a time because we go cubic BTUs per hour, and our flow rates and everything else is per minute. So that conversion factor includes the time part. And then the flow rates that are shown are standard conditions, 14.7 psi and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Generally, this is go up to 1,100 feet. We're going to talk about that. ASHRAE is a little tighter than the tab guys. And normally ignore the temperature change, humidity. Normally enjoy temperature changes and humidity changes with normal air system temperature ranges. Now, and just so we don't get confused here, that doesn't mean that when you go through a cooling coil, you ignore the changes in moisture. And we'll see about that later. But if there's no change in from water vapor, or from vapor to liquid in your airstream, then all this stuff is okay. If there is a change, then there's another thing we have to do. So here we have a heat balance thing. We have air coming in at 55 degrees, and it goes into a room, mixes, and it comes out at 75 degrees, and we're putting in sensible heat to offset. It could be people, we could have a heater, who knows what that sensible heat is. But let's just say that we got a heater, and it's dumping 1,275 BTUs per hour into that room. All right, so we have, let me see if I've got that one. We know here that we've got this much heat And I'm gonna step back, because this formula is in a different form than we saw a little bit ago, and I don't like to pull tricks like that, so I wrote this stuff out. All right, the formula we saw before was Q, that's the energy is equal to the air, let's see here. No, that's flow rate. That's a total wrong one. Okay, we'll skip that one. That was cool, but that's not what I was after. Okay, back to this one. So we've got some amount of air, we don't know how much, but we know that's the temperature. It moves through here, and it leaves at this temperature. And the question is, how much do we have? All right, so we have this much stuff. It's being carried out at a temperature change of that. And we know that there's some, they put X there. We know that this times that is our, why do I like that? Let's get another color here and see if this works out faster. We said that the energy transfer is going to be equal to the CFM times some factor times the change in temperature. All right, that's the energy change. All right. So we're going to look for, in this case, we're looking for this right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go like, oh, I forgot to put in there, this is the factor. Okay, so we're going to take these two terms, divide this side by that, put it over Q, over that factor times change in temperature is equal to that right there. It's equal to CFM. So what they did is they took that equation and messed around with it. And let's see here. Oh, okay. All right. And so right here, this right here is the 10,275 that we got from the slide before us. Oh, right here. I got it right here. So that's that number. Here's the change in temperature. Here's that factor, that F thing. There's that factor. We multiply it times that, and that's going to give us the CFM.
Why is it 1.1 instead of 1.08?
In this case, they decided that 55 degrees was dense enough to use that 1.1. It's kind of, if you're working with quite a bit, you play around with it and you come up with your own factors for different temperatures, really. But if you don't, just one of those two grab. You're not going to be greatly off because it's 0.02, it's not a big number, but so because we're at 55 and it's kind of on the low end, we chose the 1.1 instead of 1.08. And we end up with, we've got to have that condition in the room, we have to have 476 CFM. Now, as you can see right here, if we left at, instead of 75, we left at 80, that would make this number down here bigger, which would mean that this number over here would be smaller, because if we divide this by a bigger number, that gets smaller. Okay, so what we just saw there was that the room airflow is related to the amount of sensible heat that's removed or added. Now, right now, that's our governing principle for designing spaces with the kind of loads we have. Loads are changing, and at some point, we're afraid of what we're going to see is that instead of using the sensible heat, we may end up going to some other parameter for determining what the temperature should be, or how to maintain the conditions. Because latent loads now, in some cases, are becoming more dominant because of all the things we're doing to kill the energy consumption inside of the envelope. And so the whole field is, it's kind of a fun place to be right now because lots of things are changing and people are doing things and no one really knows if that was a good idea or not. It just seemed like it was. And some of them really are in terms of energy savings. That's always a good thing. But then there's a lot of other things that we have to balance too. But right now, and probably for the next several years, sensible temperature is the thing that determines what's needed to cool a space. So, well, we're at the place right now where we're almost, in some cases, what we need to ventilate the room is either more or the same as what we need, that is for outside air requirements alone, to carry the load. And from an engineering standpoint, that's a little scary. Low airflows impact the cooling and heating of the rooms and the space. We can't maintain space temperatures, and depending upon how other things are set up, we may not be able to maintain space circulation. So let's see here. Okay, so we have 10,000 CFM is flowing through a heated coil with an entering air temperature of 65, leaving air of 75 at sea level. And we want to know how much is transferred. So here we go. We have 10,000 CFM, 10,000 CFM of air coming in. It is 65 degrees. We're heating it, and it's leaving at 75 degrees. And then if we look down here at the water side, water's coming in at 180, entering water temperature, leaving at 160. Those used to be temperatures we saw a lot. We're seeing a lot less of them now, but that's the concept. So water is being cooled, air is being heated. Good. That was pretty exciting. Okay, that's all right. So let's look at what we're doing here. BTUs per hour for the water side is 500 times the gallons per minute times the change in temperature. And that 500 contains quite a few things, like one of the things is it converts. It uses that conversion of hour and minutes because of gallons per minute, BTUs per hour. And then it also has density in there. And I think the specific heat, which is 1, is what they're using. So 500 times gallons per minute times the change in temperature gives us our BTUs per hour. And remember, BTU is for a pound of water, you can raise it 1 degree with a BTU. So we got 500 of those. So there we go. So our BTUs per hour on this now are going to be 1,000 or 108,000. We plugged our numbers in up there, and that's what we got. So we can compare water side. Well, let me just go back up a little bit. We've already done the calc up here for the air, so we know how that's done. So we know how to calculate the energy that's transferred on the air side. And now we're looking at the water side. And so what that allows us to do is to look at the two and compare them. It should be the same. Everything came out of the water should go into the air. Or if it's cooling, everything came out of the air should go into water. Regardless, the heat loss should be the same on both sides of the tube. So the BTUs per hour of the air should equal the BTUs per hour of the water, and it should balance. Otherwise, we know we got trouble. We know that either the information that the guy wrote down on the report is wrong, or there's something wrong with the coil. And that's all we can say from that point is something ain't right. So go back out and check again, and while you're out there, see if you can find anything wrong. That'd be good to go out there with them. Airside impacts of the elevation change, density, specific volume, that changes. Lower atmosphere pressure is lower density. You know that when we're up flying at 30,000 feet, the density up there is really low. You get down here on the ground, it's nice and about right. Velocity from velocity pressure is used with pitot tubes to convert velocity pressure, and we convert velocity pressure to velocity. Pitot tube measurements are dependent upon density. Sensible heat calculations from volumetric airflow. Heat
flow really depends on the mass flow rate. The use of volume flow rate is based on assumptions of density. What very often, and those of you that are engineers will do is convert your flow rates to mass flow rates and use those things instead of trying to deal with the volume flow rates. But when tab, it's really convenient because your measurements, all the units you're working with, are in things like CFM, gallons per minute. And so we'll use those volume measurements. Just know that sometimes you have to sharpen your pencil and turn your volume into a mass to get a better number. Not very often, but just be aware that that's the truth. Another thing to be aware of, even though I've just told you that what goes in the wall of the tube comes out the wall of the tube, and that's true, but our problem is measurement errors. They're just always there. This is real life, this is real field, real people, real stuff. And so it's very difficult to get a measurement error that's 100% right. If our measurement errors were 100% right, when we did our calcs, we would find that everything balanced exactly, just like it did when the coil sizing guy had his computer thing and run the program and give him the coil size. For us, it will not be that way. My experience is that we're usually plus or minus something in the neighborhood of 8 to 12%. What's yours, Matt? When you compare water side balances, the heat transfer on water side and air side, what do you usually see for matches within plus or minus?
I've had that be, I mean, that's a tough one. Sometimes it lines right up, sometimes it doesn't. Probably a better example I can give of how our measurements are going to be varying, what the tolerances are is like when we measure water flow rate, you can check it in various places. You can check it with a pressure drop across a chiller barrel. You can check it at a balancing valve. You can check it with a pressure drop across or rise across the pump. And that span I've had be a pretty significant amount, 15% or so. And that's just what we get. So you kind of got to pick what you think it is. Don't do the average, works out to do what you were looking for. But you will see a variance with the numbers that we get. And that's why we have tolerances that are allowed for this data by specification. We're pretty tight on our tolerances, especially plus or minus 5%.
Yeah, and if you use what I found though, I'm pretty happy if I can get between about 92% and 108%, then I think I'm pretty tight. And I think I have a high degree. When I see something like 50% difference, I go, whoa, or 25%, whoa. There's kind of a judgment thing, and you see these numbers very often and start getting familiar with them, you'll get a sense for, that's pretty reasonable of a difference. And you go, whoa, this guy just blew it up. Whoa, this guy just blew it up is usually more obvious than a few points here or there. So if you see a big blow up, then you know that something is wrong. If it's within 8-10% of a difference, I wouldn't be too worried.
And that extra file that I'm going to send you guys on email that actually have a good lesson learned that goes along with that exact situation. So that's what I want to hopefully get to with the extra report I'm going to send you guys. And I got the email from some folks, but just a reminder, please send me an email with the email address that's up there so I can send that out to you guys.
Yeah, so
I think we got a couple questions.
I had one actually. I don't know, maybe you covered this, maybe you missed it. How do you come to, or did you show us how you came to these sensible heat gains? Is there a calculation for that?
Oh, like one of the pictures?
Yes.
Okay, that's something that, like for the lights, you get that from the best place to get it is from the manufacturer. ASHRAE has some good ways of approaching it, but usually that stuff comes in on the design side. And so the engineer will have gotten the data that he needs for what's going into the building, or the ones that are likely, because we're supposed to look at 3 of everything so that we know that the contractor we're not sole sourcing by accident. And so that information will come in with the equipment stuff that he's got. And so normally, unless something is wrong, in the field we have to back out through something. We don't have to deal with that. But that's really where it comes from.
Yeah, on the design side, you talk to your furniture guys and say, what's going to be in this room? Talk to your electricals and say, what's your load per square foot? And then you put that in your heat load.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was just.
Problem we run into in our neck of the woods is they don't want to tell you what's going in the building for them special ops, stuff like that. So
yeah,
it gets real painful when we're trying to do testing and stuff, and you realize they've got umpteen computers and plotters and all this other heat generated equipment that wasn't brought into the mix.
Yeah, let me say a bit about special things like that. Having designed several things for that and just gone through several at Tinker. The hardest thing in the world to ever get right is the loads for the kind of stuff you were talking about, heavy electronic stuff. And the reason is because the manufacturers will normally only give you their peak loads and not the amount of time you can expect the peak loads, because that varies a lot. The users have no clue. And so, right, the internal loads on some of those things are really hard to come by. And engineers that have done it for years and years and years and have minimized the burns have kind of gotten a sense for what really is going to be. Most of us just have to go to ASHRAE and use that's what most guys do anyway now. We're not seeing the experienced guys that have done like 40, 11 of these, just found that by the last 4 jobs that when I did this, it was right on. We don't have many of those anymore. So basically you go to the ASHRAE handbooks and you get a reasonable estimation for what ought to be. But back up and tell a story. I was one of early in my design career, before I came to work for the Corps, I worked for a firm and we were doing an office building and they wanted a computer room part. And this was back when we used big, mainframes. And so about the middle of the building, they had this large computer room and they wanted, I believe it was 64 degrees interior temperature, relative humidity at 40. Maybe it was 50. I forget, it was down there. Low temperatures, it's harder to hold your humidity down. We'll talk more about that later. And that low temperature was kind of low too. And I thought, it'd be a whole lot better for the whole building if we could just change that. So I called IBM, VAX, I forgot the other one, starts with U, the main mainframes in those days. And I got a hold of their technical departments and I said, what I'm seeing from our client is that he would like to have a space that's cooled for his computer equipment, have it cooled to these conditions. And does your equipment really require that? And they said, no, not really. We'll really take 75, 80, and relative humidity up to 95, non-condensing. And they all had the same ranges. I said, so I went back to my boss and I said, we could simplify things a lot if we went and used the manufacturer's recommendations. He said, Vic, we're not going to, and I'll tell you why. All the stuff you've got is good. And I also found out why those things were. The thing that we still see today for relative humidity goes back to the days when we had card readers. And if the humidity was too low, you had static electricity and the cards would stick together. If it was too high, they'd swell and you'd have trouble with the card reader again. So that was the limit there. And I said, that's great, we get rid of it. No, we can't. But anyway, my boss said we don't second guess the client. And that's the problem that we've got in all of our design. They'll give us loads, and we look at that and we go, that's not going to be. But the problem is we second guess the client, we may miss it too. So that gives us problems. Okay.
I've got one.
Yes.
What you said about the 8 to 12% thing, that's a big issue with me as far as project management is concerned. Because, obviously we're all government here, so everything's specs.
Mm-hmm.
So the air coming out of that needs to be within tolerances of the USGS spec. Does it say 8 to 12%?
Oh, okay, now that right there.
You get what I'm saying? Because I get a lot of, it's a judgment call, but then also we're restricted by spec.
Right. This right here has to do when you're comparing, you want to know if something's wrong. And you're comparing, the readings we've got fall within the tolerance. But then they do a count, and we look at and we want to know, is everything right? In other words, is our piece of equipment doing what it ought to? Or is there something we need to look at further? Well, when we see something outside of I'm just going to say our comfort range, and that's what my comfort range is kind of really. It's like minus 6 or 8, plus 6 or 8. I get too far from that, and I've gone, we need to look at this again. And I'm not sure exactly on a contractual range what we do, but usually I don't have any problems with the guy. It depends on how much they do work, if their guys are out there all the time or not. Mm-hmm. And so that's a good issue. And you really almost have to have an engineer that you trust and you're working with. Okay, I think we've already talked about mixing here. Here we've got outside air coming together with return air. We're mixing it, going through a filter and into our supply air. And what do we do for that? Well, we can use it on a mass basis. We change the amount of air to pounds of outside air, and we change it and we multiply. What we do is we multiply the incoming air times its temperature, both streams times their temperature, add the amounts together. We can get what we multiply incoming air from the outside times the outside air temperature. We multiply the return air temperature times its temperature, that is the volumes. Okay. Now in this case, we're going to start with masses. So mass of one, mass of the other. We know now what the mass is. We divide that number we just got by multiplying temperatures times mass. We divide that and we get the average, which is our mixed air temperature. And here's how we convert from pounds mass to CFM. We multiply the out times air CFM. Okay, so it's converting from pounds mass to CFM. Okay. And we'll start with mass up there. I don't know why we start that, but we did. We have the outside air CFM times the outside air dry bulb, plus the return air CFM times the return air dry bulb. Dry bulb is dry bulb temperature. And then we divide that by the outside CFM plus the return air CFM, and that gives us the mixed air dry bulb temperature. That also works for wet bulb, for dew points and for wet bulb. And when we look at our site charts, you'll see why that is. That same thing works. We can do it on mass, or we use the pounds of outside air times its temperature, the pounds of return air times its temperature, divided by the total pounds. And again, we have the mixed air, which is the average, the weighted average of those two.
Not interchangeably though. I mean, everything has to be in the same.
Same units, that's right. Same units, same run. Otherwise, you have a really interesting situation, and you don't know what you got, neither does anybody else. Oops. And here's what we've got. We're mixing two air streams. Okay. Mixing two air streams. Here's our outside air, and we have here's our return air. Outside air is 90 degrees dry bulb and 70 degrees wet bulb. Here's our 70-degree wet bulb line. And I wish we'd have done our site chart first, but the the dry bulb lines are like this, and wet bulb lines are like this. Okay. So the dry bulb goes down there. They didn't draw. There's the wet bulb line. Here's the relative humidity line, and here's another dry bulb line. They drew that one for us. And what we're going to be in here between these 2 points will be our mixed air condition. So they did the count that we just did. And what you can do is you draw a line there, draw a line there, and then you know what your mixed air temperature in Fahrenheit is. And you come up there, and before you intersect that line is the point that you are between those two. And that also tells you your relative amounts of air. This right here, it's kind of inverse. This tells you that that's that much of outside air, that much of return air. That's kind of counterintuitive until you write the formula out a couple times. You go, oh, I see it. But right now, it's just good to know. So we multiply if we want to know the percentages, we take the temperature of the mixed air minus the temperature of the return air, divide that with the temperature of the outside air minus the temperature of the return air, multiply that times 100 for 100%. That gives us our percent of outside air. And that's a useful thing to know sometimes. It used to be at one time that was a key thing to know because we wanted to have a certain percent outside air. Now it's just a useful thing to check things with. There are times when you know that percent up front and you want to do it, or otherwise you want to see if things are reasonable. And that's a good, fast reasonability check. So here we have outside air, 95 degrees Fahrenheit, return air 75, mixed air 79, and we're finding the percent of outside air. So we plug our stuff in. 79 minus 75, and 95 minus 75, and we end up with outside air of 20%, which is what I found for medical stuff pretty much close to. They usually get 20, 25 for a lot of stuff. All right, so The tap specialist can determine the percentage of the outside air in the mixed airstream using this relationship. We need to be careful though. We need to use this as a last resort when we're not able to directly reach the outdoor airflow. The amount of air is equal to the percent of outside air times the mixed airflow rate. Because the mixed airflow rate is the total. The other two parts are the pieces. Outside air and return air are the pieces. Now, another thing I want to say about this, that is that if you're going to use this, you want to be sure that the temperature differences between the return air and the outside air are enough. Because let's think about it like this. Let's suppose the difference is 10 degrees. That means each degree is 10% of the airflow. 100%. If we have 10 degrees represents 100%, then each degree is 10%. Well, let's suppose instead that our difference is 20 degrees. All right, now each degree represents 5% of the total. You see how that, now you can see that a measurement error with 5% in there, when you're making a measurement in there, is not as serious as if you're making a measurement error and it's 10%. Okay, because the percentage of your error is going to be on a smaller part. So if I make a 0.5 degree error in the case where I've got a 10 degree difference, that's a pretty big deal. If I make it when I got a 20 degree difference, it's less of a deal. And if I can get a 40 degree difference, I am happy. All right. So that's the reason why we say we only use it as a last resort, and there are times we have to. Having said that, if we know the outside air dew point and we know the inside air, the return air dew point, we can also use dew points. Sometimes, not often, but sometimes those differences will be better, not always. So just be aware